All right. Uh, Sure, an impromptu show, might I add, with me and my wonderful sidekick and short friend Ed. How are you,
Hold
Ed?
on a second. Sidekick.
Yeah.
I'm the one who hit you up. Was like, do you want to do a show? Not having my good name aligned.
No, of course, of course. Ed, how are you? I don't think the loving crowds and wandering masses have seen you in a while. What's been going on in Ed world?
I have been prepping for teams by playing as many games as possible. Tonight is the first night in 4 nights I haven't played a game, so that's cool. I'm getting a break, and by a break, we're talking about 10th edition because someone's taken pictures in the car. They were on the run from Games Workshop's legal team, and they've they've leaked them to the public. So that's very fun.
I love that we should definitely create like a narrative around this person
Did you
and
see the
how
pictures?
they
They're genuinely
stole the
taken
rules.
on someone's lap in their car. So yeah, that is the truth, and I will hear, I'll brook no arguments to the fact that Games Workshop sent the Arbites after them, Arbites, however you meant to pronounce it.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So,
I mean, that's one thing I hate about leaks. I hate when people take pictures of leaks and like the sun in the picture,
oh yeah, yeah.
or
If
maybe
you're
like
gonna
the drink.
do it so we can read it.
Oh yeah, I mean, just go, just find some nice lighting, maybe a studio, take some pictures.
I
Like
think they've done a pretty good job with these ones. I don't know about you. I can't really be on my phone much at work. Not because I'm not allowed, just I don't have time. I'm on the phone to customers all day. So I've had a skim through, but I haven't had an in-depth read. So it'll be interesting to see which bits I've misinterpreted. Um, as we've gone through, and I'll read it. I'm like, oh shit, that's way different to what I expected.
yeah.
How about yourself? Have you given these a good read through?
No, not at all, not at all.
Excellent. We can work this
I
shit out together then, my man.
No, absolutely. I'm like a baby bird. I much prefer the information like eaten by another bird and then spat into my mouth. Like that's how I like to digest my information. I like someone
I
to
like
tell me.
to I like to think for myself and come up with my own opinions, but different styles, man.
No, I like to take other people's opinions and slit them online. That's my
Oh,
rules. That's my
that's
vibe.
see, that's the safer option. You
Yeah,
can never be
absolutely.
wrong if all you're doing is criticizing other people's
Oh,
opinions.
man, you got my vibe.
So, and that's why you're here. I'm going to give my opinions, and you're going to criticize me, and
Indeed.
I'm ready for it. So, I believe I am sharing screen now. You should be able to see. Let's have a look. Can you confirm that I am sharing screen? I don't
Oh,
know
I
if it's
can.
actually.
Yeah. Okay.
Hey, there we go.
Okay. And
It's
then
on.
maybe,
It's on.
maybe. Oh, boom! Look at that. We can. Is this
Fantastic.
illegal, Ed? Is this legal?
Yeah, we haven't signed any NDAs.
Oh,
Um,
fair.
so yeah, there's nothing wrong with it. And I'm sure many people have done the same.
Maybe if we
So
like intercut it with pictures of like from other pictures from your phone, like you taking selfies and stuff, maybe we can pass
my
it off
leg in
as
the
just
car
your
where I
puppy
took
wheel.
the picture.
Yeah, yeah. No, Eddie, it wasn't you.
Yeah, no. I did go for a job as a rules writer. They didn't even get back to me, which was, fine.
I thought you were going to say you
Um,
cheated on the application.
no, I did have a moment of heartbreak because it was leading up to the January data slate, and they gave all Space Marines free weapons, and I was like, "Fuck! I hope I didn't suggest that." And I went back and I was like, "No, tactical Marines can have free heavy weapons." That's what I suggested, so I'm in the clear. But
Nice. Ed, I'm looking at the view here, and your head is entirely obscured by your name. So if you just want to like push your camera down a little bit, people can actually see you rather than just your name.
see if I
There
can.
you go. A little bit more. You know what? That's fine.
I've gone the
Don't
wrong
worry about
way.
it. Don't worry about it.
I
There you
think that
go.
should have fixed it. There we
I mean,
go. There we go. Cool.
the-
I'm looking at the thumbnail of a thumbnail, so cool. Anyway,
anyway,
moving on. We I think you wanted to actually do something with your evening, so let's blast through these. Because the faster we go, the more things will get wrong. And if I know anything about internet engagement, saying the correct thing doesn't really, nobody cares. Spicy take, get some opinions. Say something wrong. Now that's where people come and dogpile you and tell you dog shit.
get those
So
comments. Get those
absolutely,
comments.
yeah. Get in the comments. Tell me that I haven't got a clue what I'm talking about. Really looking forwards to it. Oh, we do actually have some viewers. It looks like there's a huge penis shadow on there.
We
Thanks,
have good friend
Gelmaris.
of the show, Gelmaris. I don't know if it's Gelmaris or Gelmaris. I'm gonna go with Gel.
My initial assumption is Gel, and
Gel.
thus that is correct because I could never be wrong.
Fine.
So
We're gonna go with
let's
that.
see what I'm wrong about. So the first document, because there are two that came out, I think there's a lot of overlap between the two. But the first one is the command phase. So your command phase is split into two steps. In the first, both players gain 1 CP, and you resolve any of the command phase rules. And in the second, you test to see if any of your units are battle shocked. So that's interesting. We're going to be keeping the 1 CP per turn that we've got in 9th edition, sorry. People have been saying that we're going to start with 0 CP. I could see that happening. There's less stratagems, makes them more impactful. And we're retaining the gaining command points rule that we've had previously, which is you can only gain 1 CP per turn outside of the one that you get in the command phase. All entirely reasonable and fairly similar so far. The interesting bit here is that if you have any other rules that need to be resolved in the command phase, you do so now before progressing to the battle shock step. Does that mean... I don't know when you score objective. I'm assuming it's still at the end of the command phase. I think we've probably...
Yeah. I would assume so as well, right? That's the cheeky.
Otherwise,
stuff.
you'd
Cool
score
stuff, yeah.
your objectives, and then battle shock wouldn't matter at all.
And apparently they want it to matter.
Yeah.
Word of the street is they want leadership to be a thing.
Yeah. Let's just assume that you score at the end. That makes sense to me. So battle shock. It's nice to actually see battle shock put into words. So in this step, you must take a battle shock test for each of your units on the battlefield that is below half strength, which is less than half models or half wounds remaining if you are a multi-wound single unit model. So then you roll 2d6. If you roll greater than or equal to the best leadership characteristic, the test is passed. Obviously, we've seen the leadership stat change to low is good. It just makes sense. Roll big numbers, do better, which seems to be how they want things to go. Otherwise, the test is failed, and until the start of your next command phase, that unit is battle shocked. You lose your objective control, goes to 0. If you fall back, you've got to take a desperate escape, which we will get to, but I believe is rolling 1s for each model in the unit. Roll a d6 for each model in the unit, and on a 1, you take a mortal wound or die, something along those lines. And more importantly, the controlling player cannot use stratagems to affect that unit. That is potentially going to be big. Yeah, I think, especially when we pair that with the AdMech one. I know people have been oscillating between AdMech's command ability, where you take mortal wounds at the start of the command phase, and you're battle shocked in the first turn if you decide to take them. People are oscillating between that being the most broken thing, which I think is wrong, and completely worthless, which I think is wrong as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that pans out. Any thoughts
I do like
on that?
leadership not being like a 1 that you need to roll. I think it's nice that you have to roll high. Like that's what Warhammer is all about, right? You need to roll big numbers, and all those people who have those broken, weighted dice for a 1, they're gonna have to put those in the bin. So great.
Won't be having any of that shenanigans at Coventry this year.
Indeed.
Although I believe that was for the first turn roll off because they wanted to go second. But very nice. So, here we go. Starting strength. So it is, if you have a starting strength of 1 model, then you're below half strength while you have less than half your remaining wounds. Makes sense. And for any other unit, it is if you have less than half the remaining models. 10-man unit, if you've got 5 models left, you're not below half strength. You've got 4, boom, half strength. Nice and easy. Attached units, that is interesting. So some character units have the leader ability, which lets them merge with other units known as bodyguard units. So I guess bodyguards as an actual rule is going away. That would be my assumption. We're not going to see like Tyrannid Guard having bodyguard. We'll just see.
How am I going to hide my flying hive tyrant, Ed?
Well, I don't know about the flying one, but I assume the Walker's going to be able to join the Tyrant Guard as an attached unit. So we'll have to see. So the starting strength of the attached unit is equal to the combined starting strength of all the units. So if you have 10 Space Marines and 1 Captain, it's 11. Nice and easy. If either the leader unit or the bodyguard unit is destroyed, the starting strength of the remaining units changed to equal to the original starting strength. Cool. So if you get your character sniped, or if he's the last model left alive, he isn't battle shocked because he's on his own. And if you've got 5 models left from the Space Marines, but the leader's been killed, you're not below half strength. Very nice. For the purposes of rules that are triggered when a unit is destroyed, the rules are still triggered when one of its individual units that are made up of the attached unit are destroyed, the leader or the bodyguard. Cool. So if we see like a grind them down sort of secondary kill units, something along those lines, you still get points for both. That all just makes sense to me. Just before we go on, this all seems reasonably well written. I haven't seen anything that seems glaringly, poorly worded. So that's nice.
I mean, maybe they finally employed a proofreader.
That would be the day.
Maybe they had some spare cash left over for all those kits they're going to sell, and they were like, you know what, maybe we should spell check this shit.
Yes, perhaps. Because there have been... Anyway, moving on. Movement phase. 2 steps. Move units and reinforcements. Pretty much the same as it is currently, although it's codified into an actual. So move units. Start the movement phase. Start your movement phase by selecting 1 unit, and then they can make a normal move, advance, or remain stationary if they're not within engagement range. I've read that wrong. And if they're within an engagement range, they can either remain stationary or fall back. Same as it is currently. You can only advance if you're not in combat. After you finish moving, select another unit and so on. Once you've moved all units, progress to the reinforcement step. All the same as normal. A question. Sorry, I got distracted by a shiny. The casual wargamer says, a question that I don't think is in there. Can a leader have it leave a squad and join another? What if his squad is destroyed? Is he forced to run around on his own? Yeah, I think Elmaris is right. I think they have to stay in that unit. I believe that we've seen that in one of the Warhammer community posts so far, but we might come to that later on. We'll have a look. So each time you move a unit, you can move any of its models. The controlling player chooses the order in which to move the models. That seems obvious. I guess that seems odd. I don't understand why that would be. I guess they're just spelling everything out. I'm not going to think more about that until something comes up. Maybe there's ways like Slanesh spells to move your opponent's units. Again, I don't know if that was fantasy or... Yeah, but then it would still be the controlling player. Oh, the controlling player would be the model... Anyway. If you go, you get to move the models in whichever order you choose. Prevents arguments. Here we go. Interestingly, you can pivot and/or change its position along any path, same as currently. However, it can be moved over friendly models as if they were not there if you wish, but it cannot end its move on top of another model. The only exception to this is when moving monsters or vehicles. They cannot be moved over other friendly monster or vehicle models and must be moved around them instead. The distance a model moves is measured along using the part of the base that moves furthest along its path. People will still get that wrong. If a model does not have a base, measure using whichever part of the model that moves furthest. If I have one wish for 10th edition, it is that people move vehicles correctly. It's just don't move through terrain you can't move through.
So interesting here, Ed. Right. So at the moment, when you pivot with a large monster, you're making movement. You're taking movement there. Are you? I'm reading this. It's saying that you do not use any movement pivoting.
You still would, because it's the part you're measuring basically from a part of the base to another part of the base. So you just measure the longest distance that you go on. So, for example, here's a model. Oh, it's way too small. Here's a bigger model. If I pivot it 90 degrees, you'd have to measure, the 1 inch that it goes from there to there, that part of the base. So I think it's the same, but realistically, pivoting mostly only matters for coolness. Or if you have a rectangular model, it definitely does come up. What do you think about moving over other models, though?
Yeah, I mean, all your units have the breachable keyword, right?
Yeah, that's true, I guess.
Yeah, which I kind of like, because, do I like it? It's a funny one. It's going to stop. I think this is all to stop junk, right? There's ways to trap people in against things. There's all these kind of things that we do in the game at the moment. And it's probably a bit of a feels bad moment where you've made an unwitting mistake and now you've trapped your own unit and you're the architect of your own demise. And I think that by giving people this, it's probably like giving them an out, making it a bit easier to play the game, which, that can be good. That can
Yep.
also lead to more forgiving play.
I don't think it necessarily is too much of a problem, given that your opponent's models can still block you. I'm glad they didn't go down that route. So I think just being able to, if terrain is unforgiving and you're playing Thunderwolves or something, and you go, oh crap, I can't move around here because I've moved this unit first. So I think you're right. It does make the game a little more forgiving, but not to a point where I think it actually matters. Just it means when you're on game 5 and you have a brain fart and you move your tank before you move your infantry, and they go, "Oh shit, do you mind if I, move these in the correct order?" And your opponent goes, "Yeah, of course," because that's just how people play. Um, yeah, good stuff. I like that. I think that's it's an interesting one. Remain
Mhm.
stationary. If it remains stationary, none of its models can be moved for the rest of the phase. Fine. I think that it's just good to have that codified in the way that people would ask, "Oh, if my heavy weapon doesn't move, but the rest of the squad does, do I still take the penalties to hit?" This just clears that up immediately because
Yeah,
the
big fan.
heavy keyword, I'm sure, just says if the unit remains stationary, get +1 to hit. Normal move. You can move a distance in inches less than or equal to its move characteristic. Some people, I've played, may have to take note of that. You can't move double your movement or more than half. But no models can be moved within engagement range of enemy models. We haven't seen what engagement range is defined as. I think it might be a ½ inch, but we will see. I don't think it's in these leagues. And then advanced move is roll a d6, add the results, and then you can move up to that point. You cannot shoot or declare a charge in the same turn at advanced, up until they add additional rules that break that, because that's just how advance has worked forever.
Well, they've already announced that World Eaters can do that. I think on
Yeah,
their
yeah, that's
random
absolutely right.
table.
I don't mean that in a negative way. I just mean that's the base rule, and then up until they add additions, And for example, the assault keyword on guns lets you shoot as you go. Very nice. Fallback moves. When a unit falls back, each model in the unit can make a fallback move. Yada yada yada. Provided it does not end that move within engagement range of enemy models. If it's not possible, the unit cannot fall back, and then you can't shoot or declare a charge in the same turn it fell back, same as it is currently. The bit that's slightly different here: desperate escape tests. So models can move over enemy models when making a fallback, as if those enemy models were not there, but you must then take a desperate escape test for each model that will do so, excluding models that are Titanic or can fly. So no losing your knights to a 1 when you fall back, or a
Mhm.
1 or a 2. God damn. In addition, the unit is battle shocked when it falls back. So that's some pretty hefty penalties if you manage to trap an opponent's models in, or if they want to go in a direction. If you move block them, so your models are between them and the objective, they can fall back over you, but it doesn't matter because they won't hold it. So that's quite interesting.
So it's
Um,
not a stratagem now then.
no, no, obviously previously has been a stratagem that people would forget. You'd wrap and trap, or you'd get trapped, and then your opponent would expect you not to be able to do anything, and then you go, "Cool, I'm going to spend the CP," and they go, "Oh yeah, now my army gets shot. I forgot that was a rule." Now it's just something that everyone could do, so that's good.
Yeah.
And it is, yeah, it's a 1 or a 2. A model from that unit is destroyed per model. That's pretty brutal, but I think it's fitting, makes sense to me. It is a desperate escape. Any thoughts on that one?
Um, yeah, makes the game more forgiving still. It's giving people out sort of poor like situations where they're kind of screwed, right?
Yeah, I think it maybe if you look at it through the philosophy of them moving away from having stratagems do everything and they're putting things on the data sheet, you could almost argue that this is like the data sheet equivalent of just models can do it. It doesn't have to be spelled out. We're going to be
Yeah.
starting with a lot less CP, so it works the same way.
Yeah, I like it
Um,
for that because how many times have you said to your opponent, "Oh, what is the desperate breakout stratagem? Oh, what is cut them down? Oh,
yeah,
what is?" And now they've making it all, general rules.
I
I
I
don't need
will
to find that stratagem anymore on Wikipedia.
I treat Warhammer as a full-time second job, and I will admit every time I've used it, I've had to ask my opponent, is it 1 or 2 CP? Because it
Oh
comes
yeah.
up so infrequently. So
No,
that's
it's a great change. I think,
yeah,
overall.
yeah. I'm liking that. It's just there we go. Bit of a leg, bit of forward.
Oh, Ford Fiesta.
I'll
Writing down
I'll
the
skip back.
clues. We're going to sleuth this guy out, Ed.
Let's try not to. If he's bringing us leaks, bring me some Chaos Knight leaks. I would love to see those, please and thank you. Cool. So moving on, moving over to terrain. Bit of fluff. Terrain features, see pages 44 to 48. I don't believe those rules are in this pack, unfortunately.
Yeah.
However, when a model makes any kind of move, it can be moved over a terrain feature, but not through it. So you can go up and over, but you can't just move through as if it didn't exist. I'm sure Harlequins will be the exception to that with their goddamn flip belts, but that's fine. A model can be moved over terrain features that are 2 inches or less in height, as if they were not there. That's good. So little scatter terrain you can just walk through and not. You can put things on a board if you're playing less competitive games, if you're playing at home, and not be punished for it. So that's nice. A model can be moved vertically in order to climb up or down any terrain features that are taller than this. Counter the vertical distance up and or down as part of the move. Cool. Same as it is currently. And they cannot end any kind of move mid-climb. If it is not possible to end the move as a result, the move cannot be made. All just makes sense. Spelling it out. Galmara says, flying is weird. Excellent. That is at the bottom of the page. Let's get to that. So we've got a picture of the Von Rhein's Leaper advancing towards the building, moving up and over.
So all models. So this includes monsters now, right?
Monsters can move over.
No, like barricades on the the UKTC terrain. I have to move up and then over it.
Yeah. But they're 3 inches tall, so you would lose 6 inches
Yeah,
of. Yeah, I know. I played Orc Buggies for like 6 months on that terrain, so I'm eminently familiar with that. That was back before they moved the fucking barricades out of the center of the map on most of the maps. But yeah, it's just codified. It's nice clear language. Hopefully terrain rules are simpler than they are at the moment. I'm a little salty. I finally mastered terrain rules and they're taking them away from me, but it's okay.
Well, they might be the same, Ed. You never know.
I hope they're not. I hope they just make them better. As much as it would give me a leg up over my opponents, it doesn't feel great for me to go, cool, I'm going to set to defend with my Tau battle suits, and my opponent goes, what? And I go, oh, I just assumed you knew I could do that. That's a bit of a feels bad moment.
Yeah, it is a feel bad, right?
For them. Moving on. Flying. If a model can fly, when it makes a normal advance or fallback move, it can be moved over enemy models as if they were not there, moved within engagement range when making such a move. Monsters and vehicles can do this as well. They can move over other monsters and vehicles. However, they cannot end the move on top of any other models or within engagement range of any enemy models. All makes sense. Yep. When a model that can fly starts or ends a move on terrain feature, it moves. Okay, so currently you just measure horizontal distance. Sorry, you don't measure the vertical distance. Now you'll be measuring actual true distance in a diagonal. I like that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
As Galmora says, it is going to be a bit weird, but it makes sense to me. You just move your tape measure. I think we'll get used to it quite quickly, but. Yeah, it makes more sense. Like, right now, there's no penalty to going up to the top of a 6-foot building if you can fly, as long as you're not planning on charging off it. So that'll be just a bit more realism. I don't think it's caused any issues for me in
No,
ninth.
it's going to add what? It'll probably add 1, maybe 2 inches max if you're going onto the big ruin.
Yeah, I think it just smooths the game out. It'll make more logical, consistent sense. As far as
what about if you're an aircraft?
I think they will have other rules, and they definitely won't be ending on terrain anyway. That was everything there. Yeah, that's all good there. As a Tau player, I prefer the no penalty. Yeah, but we've got to have some downsides. Otherwise, people will never play us. Reinforcements. Some units have a rule that allows them to start the battle in reserve, such as Deep Strike. They are reserves, and if they have not been set on the battlefield when the battle ends, count as destroyed. Cool. And the reinforcement step, so after you've moved everything else, you can select one or more of them and set them off on the battlefield one at a time. Once they're deployed, movement phase ends projects to the shooting phase. Very nice. Reserves are set up in the same rule that enabled. Yeah. Okay, cool. So it's saying that basically the rule that tells you whether they can go deep strike or reserve will tell you how they can do it. So I think we've already seen that on like the Terminator datasheet, for example. They always count as having made a normal move and cannot move further during this phase. Otherwise, they can act normally, shoot, declare a charge, and fight. All the same as currently.
Yeah.
And then we're going straight to the fight phase. You can tell that these pictures were taken by a World Eaters player. They have missed a fairly crucial one as far as I'm concerned. But we'll just go in. I'm not going to skip forwards and backwards because if I do that, I'll get confused. And
But how
that
do
is
I
all that
murder
matters.
things in combat?
Well, I'm going to tell you. David. So, fluff. I'm just going to skip that bit. I'm reading enough words as it is. So, in both steps of the fight phase, and the two stages are fight first and remain in combat. So it looks like they've done away with fights last on the flow chart of fights first, fights last.
Yeah, definitely
Now
wasn't confusing.
it
Definitely totally easy to understand first time for all new players.
once you saw the flow chart, it's not even a flow chart. Once you saw like 3 boxes, and it was like you're either fights first, fights last, or neither of those. If you're affected by both, you're in the middle. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
Problem is, it tends to come up after someone's decided to do something on bad information.
Here's the thing: I'm not a filthy casual, so
well, there's this as well.
fuck 'em. That's why
Fair.
I've got to live up to my role as the 6++ villain.
Yeah. That's absolutely fine. I'm on board with it.
I didn't choose the villain life. The villain life chose me. So, in both steps of the fight phase, players alternate selecting eligible units from their army one at a time, starting with the player whose turn is not taking place and fighting with them.
Man.
Okay. Note that a player cannot pass. You have to fight. Cool. So that's huge.
So why would you ever have what? That's insane.
I don't know how many units are going to have always fights first. If it's something we see very rarely, that's a strong rule. If we get another Emperor's Children style army where they just get to fight first across the board, that's going to be incredibly difficult to deal with. Because they pick the unit that fights first. That's not okay. Interesting.
Yeah, it's bizarre, right? Because you're at the moment you will try and charge one unit so your opponent can't interrupt your fighting, right? For example.
Yeah.
Now you're going to charge one unit in and essentially get clotheslined as you rebound off the ropes into your opponent, and they just smash. You're down.
I guess that makes the game a bit more interactive because you have to give your opponent multiple choices.
Yeah, but then you have to charge 2 things every turn, man. That's going to be, hey, we're not going to make the game killy, except here's a reason to get everyone into combat.
But if units don't die immediately, then that is less of a problem, right? Because you've got, coming to turn 3, you've still got most of your units. There might be, half strength, but you can go, cool, I've got 6 Gene Stealers left out of my block of 10 who just took some incidental bolter fire. I'm going to charge them in, and also I'm going to charge in the Tyrant Guard because they've reached where they want to go. And also I've got a unit of Von Ryan Sleepers. And I like how I just went straight to the Tyranid example.
Yeah.
So I think it depends how much fights first we see. If we don't see a lot of it, I think I'm in favor of this. I think it makes the game, it makes fights first a really powerful ability, which if it's given out sparingly is good. And then in the second phase, the remaining combats, the opponent picking a unit first. That's the same as it is currently. That's not an issue. If you wanted to kill more things, you should have charged the unit that was in combat with something. It's your own fault. You've got the agency there as that player, in theory.
Yeah, it feels, I don't know, man. This is just rewarding. This rewards you for not charging.
No, because it's only, so all of your units that fight first will fight first, and charging gives you fight first. So unless your opponent has fights first across the board.
Mate, I'm totally misunderstanding this.
No worries. I realized as you said that, I was like, oh shit, I've not explained this very well.
My bad.
If you charge, you get fights first. There will be other rules, I'm sure, that give you fight first. So as it is.
Okay, no, I like it then. I'm
yeah. So basically, if armies have access to one unit, like the Space Marine Company Champion, who has fights first, cool, you can do one thing, and that's going to make you strong. If you get entire armies printed with it, that's definitely going to be a problem.
Yes.
Yeah. Cool.
We're looking at you, Emperor's Children.
Well. Yeah, we'll see what happens when that codex comes out, because they won't. I don't think they'll get much in the data slate. as in they'll get a detachment that's Emperor's Children-ish, but I doubt they'll get anything. I don't know. Actually, I'm writing
Are
checks
you
out of my
saying that
mouth.
Games Workshop might not make a mistake?
I'm making statements that my mouth can't
You
cash.
can't make
Checks.
writing checks that your ass can't cash.
Something along those lines.
Yeah.
Something along those lines. All I'm doing is making those mistakes that I want people to get in the comments to tell me about. It's all for the engagement. I'm definitely not a bumbling fool. So here we go. In both steps, a unit is eligible to fight if either or both of the following apply. It is within engagement range of one or more enemy units, or it made a charge move this turn. That's the same as it is currently. So if you get charged, but your opponent pulls models, so there's nothing for them to fight, then you don't get to activate, basically. Or in a protracted combat, you might not get to fight depending on how models are pulled. No
So
unit
kind of
can
like
fight
now.
more. Yeah, exactly. Same as it is. No units can fight more than once in the fight phase. Once the eligible units can fight a fort, the opposing player can then fight with all their remaining eligible units. Okay, so basically just once you've run out of, you go, I goes, you just finish up, as it is currently, but spelled out. After a unit has fought and finished consolidation move, it may be... Yeah, there we go. Maybe that previously ineligible units are now eligible, so if you pile into another unit, they can hit you. As it stands. So far, it's exactly the same, apart from the change in fights first and the the non-existent flowchart. Okay, so fights first.
And then a finger.
Oh,
Two
yeah, yep.
fingers.
We're starting to build a profile of this person. They have
blue
fingernails.
jeans, 2 fingers, and they drive a fort.
Yeah, and there's something on their lap there, a wire. Yeah,
Maybe a phone charger
yeah,
to take all these pictures.
They are taking pictures. Cool. So we just have fights first summed up. Basically, if you fight first, if you have every model in the unit has to have this ability. So, interestingly, if you have a character with fights first in a squad, unless his ability gives the unit fights first, he's going to have to wait until he fights at normal priority.
Good one. Covering their ass here, GW, it seems.
Because that could be really fucking miserable. If you just had like 6 characters that could all fight first and go, cool, come at me, bro. Cool. Remaining combats. Do the remaining combats. Nice and easy. I think we can skip that. Fast rolling. Rules have been written assuming you roll one at a time. Possible to speed up rolling the dice together for similar attacks. Make them together, similar ballistic skill, same weapon skill, same strength, AP. So basically, the way fast rolling exists at the moment, it must inflict the same damage. Must be affected by the same abilities. So yeah, basically, if you have the same rolls, you can make the same rolls. Note that if all models in the target unit require the same saving throw, the order in which the attack's allocated makes no difference, so that's all the same. Random damage. Okay, here we go. If the attack's being allocated to a target inflict random damage, you cannot use the fast dice rolling as the opponent. You'd have to roll one at a time. Cool. So basically, fast rolling is exactly the same as it is. If you, yeah, well, there's 3 paragraphs. I had to skim. If you have, random damage attacks, your opponent has to slow roll if you've got multi-walled models. That's fine. That's how people play it anyway. I think we're pretty on the ball about that. And then there is an example for the rules that we've just gone and fuck that for a laugh, I think.
Yeah.
Here we go. Now for my favourite phase, the shooting phase. Guns and Thunder gets skipped as I scroll down. So, 4 steps. Select eligible unit, select targets, make range attacks, repeat. Does that make sense to you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, pretty similar to how it is, but spelled out as normal. Good.
Yeah, I mean, interesting that so far, not a great deal's changed, right?
Not much.
Which
It
I'm a big
feels
fan
like
of.
it's been a long time since I've read the base rules because obviously we're 3 years into 9th edition. We've played a lot of it. You feel like you have a handle on it. I generally just read the rules if there's a rule I'm unsure on, or if there's a conflict where me and my opponent don't know how a rule works. So I'm assuming that this is a clearer verbiage, but maybe I'm just remembering unfairly. However, in your shooting phase, One or more eligible units, you can select those units. One at a time, shoot with them. Each unit can only be selected once per phase. After you've shot, proceed to the charge phase. Nice and easy. It can shoot unless any of the following apply. It advanced or fell back, as standard as it is at the moment. Select targets. Each time a unit shoots, before the attacks are resolved, you must select the units you wish to be to target. For all of the ranged weapons you wish its model to make attacks with. Cool. So you can still split fire. Each time you select a target, you can only select an enemy unit as the target if at least one model in that unit is both within range and visible to the weapon. So it's still on a per model basis. If your model is in range and visible, it can shoot as a unit. Makes sense to me.
No, but doesn't it say if at least one model in that unit? So could you hide 4 models and have one sticking out and shoot them all?
No. So it's at least one model of the targeted unit. So it's as it is currently. You check per weapon or per model, and as long as that model can see at least one model in the opponent unit and it's in range, you're all good.
Each time you select a target,
So it's exactly the
models
same
range.
as it is currently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just looking for the mistake, man. I'm looking for the mistake.
An enemy model is within range if the distance between it and the attacking model is equal or less to the weapon's range characteristic. Standard there. If a model has one or more ranged weapon, it can shoot all of them at the same target, or it can shoot each of them at a different target, but it cannot split attacks from the same weapon across more than one target. Same as it is currently. You can't put 3 shots from an assault cannon into one unit and the rest into another. You've got to go assault cannon here, stormbolter here. Nice and easy. Similarly, if it has more than one model, the models can shoot at the same or different targets. In any case, when you select a target unit, you must declare which models will target that unit with which weapons before any attacks are resolved. Cool. So this is exactly the same as it is currently. It's just spelled out very clearly, and people will still forget to do it and then go, "Oh, I meant to put my stormbolter here. Do you mind if I do that?" And
I know you've got 1 wound left on your monster, but you mind if I fire all the rest of my guns that I didn't declare into it?
Yeah. It is different when people forget guns and then go, "Can I go back and shoot it?" As we had the game I had last night with Tom, he forgot to shoot his demo charges and went back and shot. But there was only one place for them to go, so that's entirely reasonable. Anyway, sidebar, this is 10th edition, not my TTS adventures. So then we've got a sum up there, which we can completely skip because we've read the long text. Lone operative. Unless part of an attached unit, see Legion, page 39, because we're going in order. This unit can only be selected as the target of a ranged attack if the attacking model is within 12 inches. Cool. Nice and easy. So you've got like a semi-stealth. If it's tucked away in your backfield, it's going to be hard for them to be shot. So I'm assuming things like yes, that's right. That is a penis shadow. Thank you, Gilmar.
Definitely. So now we know this man has 3 fingers. He drives a Ford and he has a large penis.
Which is above his legs.
Which is above his legs, which is quite impressive.
Cool. Moving back on to the task at hand. Yeah, there we go. Cool. So Vindicator Assassins, things like that will be interesting that Gilliman, Casual Wargamer says, lone operative. Interesting then that Gilliman can't be singled out from an intercessor squad despite being twice the size. I think it's for a balance perspective. So you can absolutely shoot him if you get close enough, but it stops you from just going, cool, you see that Gilliman over there with his 9 or 10 wounds. He's tough-ish, but he's not tough enough to tank the entirety of, a Tau army. Here's all my railguns, pew, pew, pew. So I think that's a reasonable middle
I'll put my strength 18 shot into Gulliman in your deployment zone. Yeah, look, I think it would be rough if you could just do
I
that.
don't play, Ultramarines. I do play Tau. I know which side of that I'd prefer to be on, but I think for balance reasons, this seems fine.
Fingers crossed for Hive Tyrants, guys. Let's go.
I'm absolutely ready to be wrong in 10th edition, but everything I'm seeing so far looks good to me. So making ranged attacks, I am just going to summarize here. Make 1 hit roll for each attack being made. If you selected more than 1 target for unit to shoot at, you've got to resolve the attacks per target before you move on. Makes sense to me. You have to resolve all of the same profile at that unit, so you can't just go plasma gun, now do my cyclics because you've taken 3 wounds and you're a 4 wound model and I want to chip you off back to a plasma gun. That's good. It's how people played it in general. I've literally never played against anyone who's arsy enough to go, going to do 1 plasma gun, then all my burst cannons, then a 2nd plasma gun, then my cyclics. It's just a dick move to do that, so nice that they've codified it. And There we go. It's codified that all of your shots remain in range, even if the first set of guns from that squad pull the model that was in range. I don't actually believe that that's how it works currently. There is some weird verbiage, and I played against someone who pulled a model and then I wasn't able to shoot the rest of it. We had to get Zach over just to confirm that was the case. So I think actually right now you can pull models out and prevent other guns in the squad from shooting it. So it's nice that's been cleared up.
Hey, high five to that guy for really trying his luck.
Oh, hey, no. Like, there was absolutely nothing wrong with it. He said, my main opponent's a guard player. And I was like, fair play, no? If that's the rule, that's the rule. There was no malice in it. It was just a case of, I'm making a tactical decision. And I was like, oh, I didn't have all the information. But that's my fault, not yours. And he did the right thing by getting a TO. Big fan of that.
Absolutely. Not to shame.
No. It makes the games go so much faster when people pull TOs. I love that.
Oh, 100%. Speak to your local TO guys.
Only if you're at events. Don't be ringing Lewis up just because you've got Saffron Slam in 3 weeks' time and going, Lewis, I'm playing a game. How does this work? No offense to anyone with vocal issues. That was. I was like, oh, dig myself out of this. No, I'll just make it worse. No one would have thought anything if I hadn't opened my
There's no way
mouth.
to escape it, man.
Moving on. Locked in combat. You can't shoot within engagement range. That makes sense. While an enemy is within engagement range, it cannot be shot. Monsters and vehicles are the exception to these rules. Cool. So basically, as it is, if you're in combat, you can't shoot unless you're a monster and vehicle. If you're in combat, you can't be shot unless you're a monster or vehicle. That's new.
Is there a minus?
There might be. Maybe we should read those rules. Big guns never tire. Monsters and vehicle units are eligible to shoot in their controlling player's shooting phase, even when they are within engagement range of one or more enemy units. Interestingly, the new Overwatch strat that lets you shoot out of phase, including in your opponent's movement phase, this looks like if you're in combat, you won't be able to do that because it specifically states that it's in the shooting phase. We'll have to see the verbiage on the strat, and maybe it says counters the shooting phase and then that overrules it, but I think as it stands, you can't Overwatch with a model in combat. So, ranged weapons equipped by monsters and vehicle units can target one or more of the enemy units they are within engagement range of, even if other friendly units are also within engagement range of the same unit. Each time they make a ranged attack, if the unit was within engagement range of one or more enemy units when it's selected as a target, unless the attack is made with a pistol, which they won't be because it's a monster or vehicle, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll. Cool.
Well, my Carnifexes have loads of pistols. I just would like to see it with like 9 pistols.
Actually, are the can you give them like dual spine fists or something? I know you can give them some wacky loadouts.
No,
maybe it's dual devourers or something.
Devourers and flesh borers.
Cool. Not that you would do that, but
all right.
Oh, you did, didn't you? You gave them.
Yeah. It was good fun. They were great.
That's absolutely fine. That's definitely something that I played around with in like 5th edition when you could do weird loadouts. Cool. So getting back on track, that means that not only can you shoot into combat, you can shoot out of combat. That might not be intended, but monsters and vehicles can shoot out of combat in a similar way to the turret weapon rule that Imperial Guard have. However, you only take the penalty if you're shooting into combat, not shooting out of it. So if you've got a ballistic skill 3 Carnifex shooting a heavy venom cannon, if it shoots the unit that it's tied up with, it's hitting on 4s. But if it shoots something across the board, it's hitting on 3s. That might not be intended, so we may have caught our first weird rules interaction.
Yeah, because it doesn't say you have to shoot the person you're in.
You'd assume it, but then you read it and you go, that's not actually how it works. So that might be FAQ'd. It might be that you have to shoot into your own combat instead of out, but maybe it's not. Maybe they just go, monsters are big, they can shoot out. Maybe they'll FAQ it so it's if you're engagement range, you take the penalty. Next part, you can select an enemy monster or vehicle range unit within engagement range of one or more units from your army as the target of ranged weapons. However, all of your attacks, unless they're made with a pistol, are -1 to hit. Very cool. You can shoot monsters and vehicles. I don't like that. I love playing big stumpy boys, and I don't want to be shot when I'm tying you up. But it makes thematic sense, doesn't it? Even as big as the Terminator is, a Carnifex does dwarf him, and I'd expect you to be able to shoot him, even if the Terminator's there.
Indeed.
So, makes sense. should smooth the game out, make some decisions more easy, more simple. And then dev note. A unit with engagement range is not eligible to shoot and cannot make range attacks against that monster or vehicle unless it has pistols. Cool. Yeah, so even if you have, for example, 4 Devastators with melter guns trapped in combat with a Carnifex, they can't shoot in unless they have a special rule or a strat that lets them do that. Okay, quick comment here. Dubious D says, my noob mind is reading 2 CP per turn, one in my command phase, one in your command phase. Is that how it currently works as well? That is currently how it works. So you're getting 2 per battle round. Let's just double check that that is still the same. And this was different size. Just go up here. Let's have a look. I think it might be in the first page, so I should have just scrolled right to the top. I really should have scrolled right to the top.
Yeah, I mean, look at the journey we've been on today so far.
We have,
It's
yeah.
all...
2 steps, both gain 1. Yes, yeah. So that is absolutely what's going on here. You're going to be gaining a CP in your turn and a CP in your opponent's turn, just as it stands at the moment. Which I think it's one of the things I really liked about the change into, was it
Nephilim.
Yeah, it's been a while, hasn't it? A whole year.
Mm.
So yeah, that change. Oh, most of it. Yeah. That change was a good one as far as I'm concerned.
It was. I agree. And then the last thing on here on this page is stealth.
Ironically, I had missed that. Very, very stealthy. Good spot there, my man. It's those sunglasses of +1 vision or whatever you're wearing. They're giving you the ability to see, unlike my glasses of prescription. So, stealth. If every model in a unit has this ability, then each time a ranged attack is made against it, subtract 1 against that attack's hit roll. So if you put a character in a stealth unit without the stealth keyword, they just lose stealth. That makes sense thematically.
I love this. This is great because for sure there'll be a character with stealth. There'll be the unit that's really tanky, and you go, I'm going to put the character in the unit, and they've all got stealth. I'm glad that they're doing this because they're actually cutting out bullshit before it happens.
Yeah. I would expect stealth units to be squishier, so I don't know if it would. Fuck it. There's abuse potential there. Yeah, I like it. It makes sense, and it makes sense thematically. It's just gone. Ranged only is interesting. Yeah, that's currently how those sorts of abilities tend to work. Usually, unless you're Harlequins. Can you tell I've played against a lot of Eldar recently? It does typically tend to be -1 to hit. That is interesting, though. I wonder if we'll see any penalties to hit against for melee units. Cool. So moving on to making attacks, we have had the fight phase and the shooting phase, so now we learn how we're going to be doing those things. Hit roll. Roll a d6. If it's greater or equal than the ballistic skill or weapon skill of the weapon, it's successful, otherwise it fails. An unmodified hit roll of a 6 is called a critical hit and is always successful. An unmodified hit roll of a 1 always fails. It can never be modified more than +1 or -1.
Sounds very familiar, Ed.
Yeah, it's how it currently is at the moment. 6 has been called critical hits, is been codified. They did bring in 6s are always hits in this edition to counteract some of the bullshit that poor Orc players had to play against with 8th edition fucking Eldar Flyers that were a -3 to hit. I don't miss those times. I first played against it at a tournament where I was playing an Azrael Hellblaster Castle. I was killing myself on 4s. Fun was had by all. It was a time, truly a time.
Just skipping ahead, the wound roll is all the same as well.
Wound roll is all the same. Fantastic. And as you can see here, it's the wounding on a 2s if your strength is double theirs. Wounding on a 6 if it's half theirs. Same in the middle. Nice and easy. Good rolls there. The wound roll is greater than equal. Lovely. 6s, critical wounds. It's nice that they've codified that with a name. It just makes it easier. You can reference, instead of going a 6 to hit, always wounds, you just go critical wounds. Nice and easy. And that seems to be everything there. Allocate attacks. So if the attack successfully wounds, the player controlling the unit allocates to one model in the target unit as follows. If it's lost a wound or has already had attacks allocated to it this phase, the attack must be allocated to that model. Otherwise, it can be allocated to any model in the target unit. Note, it does not matter that the model is visible to or within engagement range or range. That's good. Some people were speculating that we'd be seeing you can only deal damage to the models that were, actually viable targets in terms of close to you. That would be terrible. I was already plotting how to ruin people's day by putting Necron warriors on the other side of a wall and just growing back and dominating the primary, because you literally couldn't kill me without being Eldar fast. So I'm glad they didn't do that. As it is, it's the same as it currently is. You have to keep taking saves on the models that have taken saves this phase or are wounded. And then if you've got, not taken any saves and it goes to the next phase, cool. You don't have to take them on that model. You don't have to bookkeep and go, oh shit, was it this model here or was it this one back here? Good rules writing. Love it.
Oh.
Saving throw. Controlling the target unit makes one saving throw. By default, it'll be the armor save, but some models will have invulnerable as saves. See right, we will have a look at those in a second. Roll a d6, modified by the AP. If it's AP1, subtract 1 from the saving throw. All good. If the result is greater or equal, and an unmodified roll of 1 is always fails, a saving throw can never be modified by more than +1. Interesting. I think that means post modifiers, because it's not, if you have +2 to your save but -4, you haven't improved the save by 2. You've reduced the save by 1 overall. So I think you can still remove modifiers, but there's no more going to be getting 4-up models to a 2-up save, which is something that you absolutely can do at the moment with models like Gelmaris is talking about stealth suits. Them in cover, I believe they get +1 to their save. So they'd be getting a 2-up save in cover against AP0. Cool. That makes sense to me. I'm happy with that. Just less armor stacking bullshit is good. I believe if, for example, we saw Storm Shields, if they still give +1 to your save, which they probably won't, but if they did, you'll no longer be seeing... Oh, no, you'd still be seeing the same bullshit. Ignore I said anything. Moving on. Invulnerable saves. They have it listed on the datasheet.
Well, a Terminator can only ever go to a 1-up, right? In that world.
No, because in that world, they'd be going to a 0-up because of as long as they were taking more modifiers that were negative, under my assumption. Maybe they mean that you can only ever benefit from a single +1, no matter
well, that's what
how
I
many
think
negative.
So
I
then,
don't
if
think
you have
that's
a
how
Storm
it's
Shield,
written,
for
though.
example. Oh, right, okay.
I believe that it's post modifiers, like when I think the sum of it can't add up to +2. But I could be wrong, and I'd be quite happy to be wrong there, because save stacking is absolutely something that has been the bane of this edition. Don't get me wrong, I like my tanky models. I'd love more of it, but I don't think it's good for the game. Especially when we're seeing AP reduced. I don't want to see models with a fucking -1-up save. Thanks to Armor of Contempt. So, invuns. Each model chooses whether to use that save or the invulnerable, but not both. Can only use one of them. Never modified by AP and follow the following rules. Yeah, cool. It's exactly the same as it is. Codified, just to make it clear, you can still decide to take attacks on your armor save if you want models to die off. It's a niche case, but it's nice that it's clearly spelled out saying that you choose and you're not forced to take the better one. Big fan of that. Step 5. Inflict damage. Damage inflicted is equal to the damage of the attack. Lose a wound per point of damage. If it's reduced to 0 or less, it's destroyed and removed from play. Any excess damage is lost and has no effect. This is the same as currently. I was interested to see if we were going to be getting damage spillover the way that they do in Age of Sigmar, but I don't think it works with 40k because of the way, like how much range we have. It's a lot easier to bring big damage to bear, and that would just like absolutely wipe units. So, yeah, cool. Any thoughts so far on these? It's all pretty much the same.
Yeah, so my big anxiety with 10th was, oh shit, it's a whole new game. I'm gonna have to learn it all. Oh god, I'm gonna have to get in the bin, aren't I, and start again. Like I'm at,
It's all right,
all
Dave.
these
You
different
don't know how
games.
to play 9th.
This is totally true. This is totally
It's
true.
untrue and unfair.
But it's way closer to the original product than I remember. Than I believed.
Everything I've seen so far has been just tightened up.
Yeah, common sense.
Yeah, cool. So feel no pain. Some models have feel no pain. X plus, great for anyone who joins the game in 8th edition onwards. They now understand what we're talking about. All of the grognards who are saying, I've got a 5 up, feel no pain, and they go, what? Because that's not how it's been worded for
No,
the last
it,
6 or
it was
7 years.
It's like 3 lines of text.
If a
If
model
you would
takes
take a
yeah,
wound.
ignore that wound on it. It's like, yeah, feel no pain. Cool. Nice. Feel no pains. Great. It's codified. I hope they don't go mad with them. Just, keep the stacking of durability in control. Again, as much as I love durable armies, I absolutely enjoy slow tanky armies more than fast ones.
Keep them
If
away
not,
from bloody crisis suits.
yeah. So that all looks fine to me there. Cool. Basically, feel no pain's a feel no pain. It is what it is at the moment. It's just got a word now. Deadly Demise. Here we go. This is the explode rule. So roll a d6 before removing it from play. On a 6, any model within 6 of that unit, any unit, sorry, within 6 of that unit exploding takes a number of mortal wounds denoted by the X. So if you have Deadly Demise 1, you're taking 1 mortal wound. If you have Deadly Demise 3, you're taking 3. Nice and easy.
Yeah.
I don't think I think we've only seen flat numbers. I could be wrong with that. Someone let me know in the chat. In fact, we've only seen flat numbers. If I'm wrong, tell me in the chat. So that'll slow down the game instead of, because at the moment, especially if you've got to feel no pain, transport explodes. Your opponent goes, cool. 2 mortal wounds on those wardens, and I go, cool. Fail 2. 2 mortal wounds on those shield guard. Fail 1. Let me just mark that up. So just having it be a flat number will make things a lot faster and easier for all involved.
Indeed.
We have got mortal wounds here. I wasn't sure if we were going to see mortal wounds. I guess the some of the weapons do them. We saw previewed, so be
It's a
interesting.
nice, easy way. I know this sounds a bit cynical. It's a nice,
Yeah.
easy way for them to, I suppose, like adjust deadliness level, right? So, like, if they want to release a new army and they want people to buy it and they want it to be exciting, as Codex Creep and what have you has been this edition. I think it's a nice little lever that they can push up and down to make things interesting. I mean, look at Zone
What
Threat,
is,
right?
sorry,
Zone Threat.
the mortal
Mo-
wounds? Is that what you're talking about, mortal wounds?
Yeah, because when it first comes out, it's likely to be quite low, right? Like
Sure,
reasonably
sure.
rare.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm pretty pleased with the lower mortal wounds that we're seeing
Me
at the
too.
moment, but we'll have to see how it pops along. Yeah. Okay, so let's just double check. Some attacks inflict mortal wounds. 1 point of damage on the target unit. They always applied one at a time. Do not make a wound or a saving throw, just as it is currently allocated as you would normally. Excess damage is not lost. It spills over, again, as it is. If when a unit is selected to shoot or fight, one or more of its attacks can inflict... Okay, yeah. So if when a unit is selected to shoot or fight, one or more of its attacks can inflict mortal wounds on the target, resolve any normal damage inflicted first, and then do the mortal wounds afterwards. Exactly the same as it is currently.
Indeed.
In addition, if the normal damage is subsequently saved, you still take the mortal wounds. Yeah. So it's exactly the same. It's just, it's there, it's in a box, it's nice and clear. You love to see it.
Absolutely.
All good so far. Oh, here we go. Weapon abilities. This is some of the fun stuff. We've
Oh
obviously
yeah.
seen quite a few of these previewed, but yeah. Have you? I was going to say, have you got a favorite weapons ability? Which is such a fucking anorak question that I'm not going to ask
Oh,
now. I'm
oh,
gonna.
have you
We're
got
gonna
a
read through,
favorite weapon
and
ability?
then we'll see if there's any that really take your fancy afterwards.
Yeah.
Because I think once we've read them, it'll be fine to have an opinion on them. Assault weapon. Weapons with assault are known as assault weapons. If they advanced, any models equipped with assault weapons are still eligible to shoot in the shooting phase. You can only resolve attacks using assault weapons if you advanced. Same as it is currently. Nice and easy.
No minus to shoot.
That's true. That is
Yeah.
true. I wonder if we'll see that rolled into the data sheet. So assault weapons maybe are going to have a lower weapon skill, ballistic skill, or maybe it'll just be the same. And they've gone, you know what, we want to limit the minuses. Good spot.
I think they try
Rapid.
and limit the minuses, right? It's just less hassle for people. Smoother
We've
gameplay.
seen ballistic skill go down across the board. I would say
Indeed.
across
Oh
across
God, man.
armies.
Yeah.
Admech and Votan both going to a weapon skill 4 army, according to the previews we've seen. Pardon me. maybe they're going to keep the ballistic skill 3 up for the premium shooting armies of Space Marines and, the people who are meant to have the superhuman aim and that sort of. Yeah, which makes sense because there's not a lot you can do with ballistic skill, but if you're capping modifiers pretty heavily, having 3B premium, 4B average, and 5B orcs makes sense. I'm okay with that as long as they then don't stack loads of modifiers, so you feel really bad if you're an orc player.
100%.
Cool. So rapid fire, we've seen this one already. Weapons with rapid fire X in the profile are known as rapid fire weapons. Each time such a weapon targets a unit within half of that weapon's range, the attack's characteristic of that weapon is increased by the amount denoted by X. Very similar to what it does. Half range, you get more shots. This way, they have more granularity. So basically, the orc, is it DACA? They're called orc DACA weapons.
Yeah.
They basically do the same thing, but you instead of just going, oh, rapid fire is always 2 at long range, 4 at half range, you can go, actually, it's 3 at close range, but it's only 1 at long range. So you can tool a weapon to be, if it's a really inaccurate machine gun, you might go, oh, it's 4 attacks if you're within 12 inches. But once you get to, 24 inches, it's actually only like 1 shot because it's really inaccurate. So
100%.
I like that. It gives more granularity. Even if they don't use it a lot, it gives them the option to.
Yeah.
Ignores cover. Weapons with ignores cover.
I'm going to tell you now, this is my least favorite one.
I bet it is. It's probably going to be my favorite. Weapons with ignores cover in their profile are known as ignore cover weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, the target cannot have the benefit of cover against that attack. Color me surprised. Ignores cover, ignores cover. Nice and easy.
Let's get on to this sexy one, Ed. Come on.
The sexy one. Cool. Pistols.
No,
Weapons.
No. You know what you're
All right.
Come on, Ed.
Just before we start, to remind you, this is the addition of reduced rerolls. Twin linked. Weapons with twin linked in their profile are known as twin linked weapons. I'm going to skip reading that bit, I think, because it's going to be the same.
I think that's a good idea, Ed.
Yeah, I've got to the 4th one and gone, actually, maybe I should stop wasting your time. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, you can reroll that attack's wound roll. Wound rolls are the best sources of rerolls because you're more likely to be wounding on a higher value. Indeed. And it is more valuable to get a reroll on a worse roll because it increases your chance of doing something important more than it does. If you're rerolling hits on 2s, sure, you hit with most things, but if you reroll hits of 5s, you go from hitting a third of the time to over half the time, which is a big improvement.
Indeed.
What are you thinking of this one?
Yeah, I mean it's an interesting one. It's new, and
it's old.
It's very old actually. Yeah, I remember playing with this in I think 3rd edition. But you're right. Yeah, it sounds interesting and it's new to this edition after 9 didn't have it. So cool.
Yeah, and we are seeing that paired potentially with lower shots. So it's always better to have double the shots but no reroll wounds. So if that's how they go, great. If it gets crept to the point where you get similar or more shots and you're still getting the reroll wounds, then it could be a problem.
Yeah, I think there's be some, this again is one that they can adjust, right? So they could change this to reroll 1 wound roll.
I think the USRs are pretty set in stone. I'm not expecting those to change.
True.
I think they're more likely to balance the weapons with those rules. The Casual Warbeck gamer says, didn't Twin Linked used to re-roll the hit roll? That's correct, yeah. But that was before wound re-rolls were as common.
All right, pistols.
I'm just going to summarize. Unless you're a monster of vehicle, if you're shooting pistols, that's all you can shoot. You can shoot into engagement range. You don't take penalties. You can shoot into engagement range even if there are multiple units engaged. Jobs are good. Bish, bash, bosh. Can't shoot other units that are engagement range if you're not. It's basically the same as it is. Lovely. Torrent.
A new word. Torrent. Cool. Very cool.
Yep. It auto hits the target. What does that sound like to you, Davey?
Sounds like a flamer to me, Ed.
It does sound like a flamer because torrents are flamer weapons. I guess I like it because you can have like acid flamers, and an acid torrent makes more sense than an acid flamer. So
flamer's it's not a good noun, right?
No.
No, torrent is a good noun.
Sure. Yeah. Positive change. Like it. Summarized. Good, good, good. Lethal hits. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, a critical hit automatically wounds the target. 6 is to hit or to wound. We love this rule. As long as they
Yeah.
don't print any rules that... Oh, it's specifically not wounds and counts as a critical wound, which would be a 6 to wound. So I think it's
Good.
fine. Yeah, I think having 6s to hit or to wound is fine. It's when you start getting 5s and 4s and comboing it with hit rerolls. There are ways to improve the critical range on at least wounds. I don't know about critical hits, but hopefully we don't see any shenanigans there. Come back to this video in 8 months' time and laugh at me for my naive hopefulness there. Lance weapons. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if the bearer made a charge move this turn, add 1 to the attack's wound roll. Great roll.
Cool.
It's what lancers do, and by lancers I mean, for example, the shield captain, not shield captain, just the the Virtus Praetors and general custodies with their lancers. They charge, they get +1 to wound. I don't know if Shining Spears do, but if they don't, they should, and now they
Believe
probably
they do.
will. Yeah, cool. It's just standardizing something that multiple armies have at the moment.
The Rough Riders get it as well, I believe.
True. Or at least they used to. I assume they still do. I don't love the models.
So would you say Ed, that they're codifying that now?
Can you explain the joke to me?
Well, you've said codifying quite a few times. I just want to codify your joke.
I see. Thank you. Indirect fire. We have seen this one already, and people have
Doesn't ring
already
any
been
bells to
annoyed
me.
by it. Yeah. So I believe it's pretty similar to how it stands. These attacks can destroy many models in the target unit, even though they may not have been visible. That led people to think, oh, maybe you can only kill visible models. Not the case. If no models in a target unit are visible to an attacking unit when you select that target, each time a model in the attacking unit makes an attack against that target using an indirect fire weapon, subtract 1 from that attack's hit roll, and the target has the benefit of cover against that attack. We did see this paired with the flagration missiles for the Sisters of Battle on the Exorcist, which both had heavy, so +1 to hit inbuilt if it didn't move, and ignores cover. So just ignoring both parts of the rule. This has changed from worsening the ballistic skill. So previously, if you were ballistic skill 3, you could be hitting on 5s if you shot through dents or another source of -1 to hit because you were getting that -1 ballistic skill. It is absolutely a stronger rule. However, and I know they've said that they're going to limit, rerolls. It seems like they're limiting the amount of buffs you can stack on units. So I think this is fine as long as they don't print busted as fuck indirect rules. If they print things that look fine on paper, which I think they do quite well, I think Games Workshop are very good at printing rules that are fine. It's when the combos come in, that's when things get broken. And I think they're limiting the combos in this edition. That is my read on how it's gone so far. So I don't think it's going to be an issue. It's going to be, but we'll see how it goes. Lewis Archer says Shining Spears get +3 strength on the charge and strength of instead of +1. Thank you very much, Lewis.
Thank you for the insight, Lewis.
Thank you for A, being correct, because that is true. I remember that, and also B, proving me right that all you have to do is be wrong on the internet, and someone will tell you that you were incorrect. But he did it in a friendly way. So we like to see that. Yeah, indirect. Any thoughts on that compared to the current version?
I mean, it comes down to points cost, right?
Yeah.
These units need to be expensive. They can't be spammable. And then I'm fine with it.
Yeah. It's pretty much how I fall. If you can take, so I think having a little bit of indirect fire in a pure shooting army is good. It lets you interact with armies that you might struggle to interact with otherwise.
Mm-hmm.
But when it becomes oppressive, it's really unpleasant to play against. So
yeah, 100%. I do think it has a place in the game because I think it can force armies that are maybe more passive to act, and to be more engaging. But
I think it
but
has
again,
a place in
the
the
second
game.
it's spammable, it's out of order.
I think it has a place in the game, but I'd also be okay with it going away because indirect metas and flyer metas are 2 of the most miserable metas to play in, and I would be okay with that just not happening. Even though, I'm absolutely going to play it if it's good, because it makes the game so much easier to play. It removes so much agency from your opponent, but I'd be okay with never having to do that again. Um, so, precision. Each time an attack with such a weapon successfully wounds an attached unit, if a character model in that unit is visible to the attacking model's player can choose to have that attack allocated to the character model instead of following the normal attack sequence. So basically, if you have precision attacks, all your attacks have the sniper rule, and it melee or ranged. Basically, means that you can kill characters even if you were unable to do so without chewing through the entire squad.
That's interesting in melee, right? That's very cool.
Yeah, so there is a strat that lets you challenge an opponent. Challenges are coming back. It's
Oh
not
god.
as good as it used to be. It used to be that you'd have to make all of your attacks. Both of you could only attack each other, or you'd like deny the challenge. Maybe that was fantasy. God,
That was
that was
fantasy, yeah.
15 years ago. I don't remember. It's
I used to
fine.
have that fantasy, yeah.
Now it's just that strat gives your character precision hits, so they can attack the character. What I really like about this is if you know your opponent has precision weapons or access to precision, you can hide the character and protect them. So you can put some of your models in front of obscuring walls to get where they want to be, and you can string back and leave the character um, behind the wall.
Yep.
Cool, cool, cool. So, good. As long as it's not spammed, we will see how it goes.
Hmm.
All right, blast. This one's changed. We've seen it already. Basically, each time you determine how many attacks are made, add one to the result for each 5 models in the target unit, rounding down. So if there's 5 models, get +1 attack. If there's 10, +2. It can also never be used to make attacks against a unit within engagement range of 1 or more units from the attacking model's army. So it stays the same. You can't blast into combat because it's inaccurate. That's fine, but you get extra attacks instead of having a flat minimum. The flat minimum didn't feel good. There were so many weapons that had a flat 3 attacks plus whatever, or flat 2 plus whatever, and it just didn't feel like the blast actually came up very much.
No, I
Hopefully
agree.
we'll see more horde armies now, because this is in theory less scary. Instead of going, oh, all my attacks get, my squad of D6 shotguns all get 6 each. Getting +1 attack or +2 attacks is a bit less scary.
Yeah, I was playing against a night spinner on Sunday at 2d6 shots against my 14 Hormigans. I was like, this doesn't feel so good.
Yeah, you didn't want to win that game, I hope.
Oh, no, I won. Took it. Smashed
Okay,
it, mate.
didn't want to have fun, I hope.
No, no.
Cool. Melter. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if it targets a unit with half range, the attack's damage is increased by the amount denoted. So we've seen this already. We've got melter guns that have +2 damage. We've got multi-melters that have +2 damage. If you're in melter range, get +2. Very nice. Same as it is. It just, shorthands it. Much easier. Heavy. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, if the attacking model's unit remains stationary this turn, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Keep in mind that means all models have to stay stationary. That has been spelled out above. I was
Say
going
it's
to say
been codified,
codified.
Ed.
Yeah, no, I stopped myself because you made fun of me. So I I've adjusted my
Yes.
behaviour. Yeah, cool, very nice. In general, it looks like on models that would take the heavy penalty in 9th edition, they're getting 1 worse ballistic skill, but if they stand still, they're getting a positive. Which is interesting because it means that it's harder to buff those squads. So heavy weapons are harder to hit on, it'll be unlikely to hit on 2s, for example, if you were previously hitting on 3s. Or something along those lines. This one is a spicy meatball, and not one that I am keen on. Hazardous basically boils down to after you've made your attacks with hazardous weapons. So there's no gets hot on ones. That's gone. It's not in your hit rolls. You're not re-rolling your gets hot. Each hazardous weapon, not hazardous shot. So if you've got a rapid fire plasma gun, you shot 2 shots, but each gun just rolls a single dice. Rolls a d6. For each roll of 1, that test is failed, and 1 model from that unit equipped with the hazardous weapon is destroyed, selected by the controlling player, unless that model is a character, monster, or vehicle, in which case it suffers 3 mortal wounds instead.
Woof.
That is absolutely fucking brutal.
Didn't want to play Hellblasters anyway.
Yeah, and if you've got a character with a plasma gun, a plasma pistol, he has to take the rule. He has to take the wounds if he shot the gun. There's
Or
no
she.
passing it off,
Okay.
or she.
Are they?
Wait, what's that phrase? Is that Monty Python I'm thinking of? He or she. Why are you so obsessed with being a woman, Stan? There we go. That was it. Um, I watched a lot of Monty Python growing up. That's just
Yeah.
my
We know,
upbringing.
man. We really know.
I don't quote Monty Python to you, but I should.
No, but
I
you've got that
should.
vibe. You've got that.
I've got that vibe.
You've got
Yeah.
that theatre student vibe, right? Hot theatre
uh,
student energy.
I will take it. I've been called a lot worse. Chris Symbol says, yes, it's a shame for the Magna Rail rifle. Is
Oh,
the
is that
Magna Rail rifle?
hazardous?
I I don't know if it is, but if it is, sucks to suck. I will be probably taking, yeah, no passing Iron Blaster wounds off to drones. I will probably be taking all my cyclic ions off my crisis suits. I'm already thinking about putting double flamers on them because being able to overwatch in the movement phase, just having that board control, people
Oh,
move
you
up.
filthy.
Yeah, we'll see, we'll see. I want to play Chaos Knights to start off with because I think that's something that I can plop on the table without having to like pull things apart or buy a load of things from what I have,
Mm.
and then we'll see how the meta develops and go from there. But
I think Knight is a hot take. I agree. I think Chaos Knight would be a nice one.
we get to see knights tomorrow. I'm so like I know it's Imperial Knights. I just want to see the toughness of a big knight, the toughness of a small knight, and a big weapon. Give me those three, and I'll be happy. Concerning heavy and the new grudge tokens. Ah, yes, Chris says concerning heavy weapons, so it'll be hitting on fours. Yeah,
Ah,
that's absolutely right. Plasma Inceptors are now really bad, says Lewis. Unfortunately, they have been for a while. Apart from that 20 minutes where they got buffed to 40 points a model, and then Games Workshop went, hold on a second, this is too much. It's a shame. I really like the models. Devastating wounds. Each time an attack is made with such a weapon, a critical wound inflicts a number of mortal wounds on the target equal to the damage characteristic of the weapon and the attack sequence ends. This is cool. I like it. It means, sixes to wound do a mortal wound on your assault cannon. Very nice. If your assault cannon, for example, was supercharged somehow and did 3 damage, if you had a weapon that was devastating wounds, did 3 damage, if you roll a 6 to wound or a critical wound, you're just doing 3 mortal wounds.
ooh.
Again, as long as they're making these correctly and they're not supercharging the damage, I like it. You just you're
I,
lining up combinations there.
I like leaving the door open a little bit, right?
Yeah,
Like, oh, this might be breakable. This feels very breakable.
it does. But again, I'm going into 10th with a positive mindset. I'm believing that they are going to limit the amount of buff stacking, which was the problem in ninth. It's not necessarily it's the re-rolls or it's this or that. It's having everything layered on top of each other. Maybe Plasma Inceptors are one gun with twin links, says Chris. That's a good shout. That would be you'd still die quickly, but you would be that's actually pretty scary. A lot of strength 8 AP3 2 damage guns, I'm assuming, that reroll wounds. I'll be interested to see that. However, devastating wounds, the thing that might cause it issues is the rule that's right to annex it. I'm going to go out of sequence here because anti. Each time an attack is made with a weapon against a target with the keyword after the word anti, an unmodified wound roll of a X plus scores a critical wound. That means if you have anti-infantry 4 plus, so you have a critical wound on a 4 plus, and you have devastating wounds, any 4 plus is a mortal wound, and that is where I'm not so keen.
Mm.
Yeah, we'll
Anti
see.
doesn't feel like a great rule.
I think it's necessary for the toughness creep they've gone for. I say
Okay.
toughness creep. I mean that in the most positive way. I'm a big fan of the toughness being expanded. Having 8 as like a theoretical cap doesn't actually really make much sense. Being able to expand it up gives you more room to play with. But
Mm.
we will
It kind of
see.
reminds me. Are you a Magic the Gathering player?
I don't play, but I know.
There was a obviously there's a bunch of rules called protection from, and you would be
Mm,
protection from black, protection from blue, and it really makes some games just unbearable to
yeah,
play.
makes it very
And
rock paper scissors. And you bought the
absolutely.
rock, but your opponent has the paper. You're just like, guess I've got to play 3 rounds of this. Cool.
So there's an interesting thing here where, as meta game players or people who are
Yeah.
aware of the meta game, like someone starts, oh, it's a spam list. Oh, great. Okay, well, spam lists are in. We're going to take anti-infantry. And that's quite cool because then it keeps things moving, flowing, a bit more fluid. However, if there's something that is just savage against most things, but then extra good against everything else. Do you know what I mean? Like I think that this
I'm
could.
assuming that they're going to write the rules correctly, and they're not going to give autocannons anti-vehicle. They're going to give,
Yeah,
dedicated tank weapons anti-vehicle
get what you're
and
saying.
dedicated infantry weapons anti-infantry, assuming that they don't do some sort of like bizarre cock-up, which makes, strength 5 AP2 2 damage the best gun in the game again.
Hmm.
We will. I think it'll be fine as long as they don't have a monkey on a typewriter writing the rules.
It's fine. How many units are there in 40k? What, 30?
The nice thing is, especially because they're starting off with the data sheets, the indexes, they can catch that and fix it very quickly. So
True,
I'm
true.
I we'll see, but I'm feeling positive so far. Sustained hits. Weapons with sustained hits. If you make a critical hit, which I think at this point we've only seen sixes, I don't know if there's any way to increase the critical hit threshold. You get a number of additional hits. We saw that on the Plague Marine. No, the Blight Lord Terminator data sheet. If they're making attacks, they have sustained hit ones in melee. If they're on a point that they control, they have sustained hits too. I think it's great. It's it just means that you can play around with it. Lots of armies have access to exploding sixes. Codifying it, make it so easy to be like, this. You'd never have a rule that was like have exploding sixes, but if you're holding an objective, have sixes to hit counters 2 additional hits, because it's so wordy and it just never
Mm.
would have popped up. This gives
It's
you that
definitely not
design
the design
space.
philosophy of this edition.
Yeah, it's smooth, it sums it up, and it gets extra hits on sixes, which is the most fun thing in the game. Uh,
Yeah, it is.
and
It
that is
does quite right.
the correct opinion as an did I say codify? Kelmara says I should
Oh
have said
yeah.
the thing. I must have done. I'm just gonna get a t-shirt printed with that on. Extra attacks. We have seen that you can only make attacks with one melee weapon. That is right. You don't get to make 37 attacks with your Gilliman. The world is in tears. However, weapons with extra attacks can make the attacks listed on the profile there. So if you've got extra attacks 3, you get to make 3 additional attacks with that weapon.
Mm.
Um, it
Examples being Misericordia.
Misericordia would be a good one, or all of the demons rules we saw. Obviously, at the moment they've got rules to give them extra attacks. We're just seeing that continued through.
Mhm.
Nice and easy, seeing it codified. And
It's not
yeah, it
fun when you enjoy it, Ed.
it looks here like you can still make all of your attacks with those. So, for example, when I charged a load of Genestealer Neophytes last night with my Sagittarum, and I made, 12 attacks with the Misericordias, I could still do that next edition, which is great. Great roll. Love it. Anti, we have done already. Oh, I think that might be all of our keywords. What's your
Mm.
favorite keyword?
Not well, okay. Without being a horrible, miserable northerner, I'm not a big fan of that anti, as I said.
Yeah,
But um, heavy. I like precision. That seems like it's my vibe. Um,
precision is sixes to hit or to wound. No, that's getting the characters.
yeah, and
Cool.
torrent, torrent, and twin link seems pretty cool as well. So, you know what? I'm just. I think there's a
Harking
good mix. There's a good mix.
harking back to the Tyranid reveals, the detachment that we'll be starting with, you get to choose whether you want your entire army to have precision hits.
Mm.
Um, what were the other two?
Oh,
Sustained hits or devastating wounds, maybe?
I can't think. I
Lethal
honestly
hits.
cannot remember.
Lethal hits.
Lethal.
That was it. So you could, auto wound vehicles, or you could get exploding hits against infantry, or you could pick out characters, which is a really
Mhm.
nice, flexible rule. Obviously, we had those all explained before now,
Yeah,
but it's just
until I have
it's
to
just
put it in
nice.
my list.
Don't worry, I don't think Tyranids are going to be anywhere near as good this edition as they were last one. I think they can
No,
still be
no.
fine, but yeah.
But yeah, this Eldar Farseer that I'm painting says otherwise as well.
Oh, you're branching out, are you? To a different
Wow.
Xenos army. Very cool.
Mm.
Very cool. So, charging. This is a 5-step process. Select unit, select targets, make charge roll, make charge move, repeat. Nice and easy. Cool. So, any eligible units that you want to charge into close combat, you can select the units one at a time to declare a charge. Unlike 8th edition, where you declared all of them. Remember that? That was wild. Once all of the charges have been resolved, progress to the fight phase. It can still only charge if you're within 12 inches. Even if you have some way, like bonuses to your charge, you can't declare if you're over 12 inches away. Great rule. Love it. You can't charge if you advanced or fell back, if you're within engagement range, so you can't charge out of combat, and you can't charge if you're an aircraft. Great. All makes sense, as it is currently. Love to see it. Charging with a unit. Once you have selected an eligible unit to declare a charge, you select one or more enemy units within 12 inches. You make the charge roll rolling 2d6. That's the maximum number of inches you can make. For a charge move to be possible, the charge roll must be sufficient to enable the charging unit to end that move within engagement range of every unit that you selected, same as it is in ninth, without moving within engagement range of any units that were not a target of this charge, same as it is, and in unit coherency. So far, we're looking at exactly the same as we're at. If conditions can't be met, the charge fails and it can't move. Otherwise, it's successful. Move all the models in the charging unit up to the number of inches. When doing so, each model in the charging unit must end its charge move closer to one of the units selected as a charge target of its charge, which means you can still do some slingshot shenanigans, but you can't do as much. Right now, I believe you don't have to do it. 6++ Gaming, that's us, says, this is again proof that the Leaker is a World Eaters player. You can tell by the massive shadow of the penis.
Yes, on the charge page.
On the charge page, yeah. We'll ignore that it was on the shooting page as well. So, if you can also move a charging model so that it ends its charge move in base-to-base contact with one or more enemy models while still enabling the charging unit to end its move, satisfying all of the conditions above, you must do so. Bit wordy, but it just means that you have to move into base-to-base if you can. So they're trying to cut down on the amount of combat phase shenanigans. I don't love that because I'm pretty okay at the fight phase, charge phase movement, and it's definitely a big skill expression that you can have. Especially if you're playing a shooting army. I love really min-maxing the charge phase as a shooting army. I think it's fine it's going away because the percentage of players who can really use that to a high level is low. When I go to tournaments, you see the 3 and 2 players typically not making the most out of it. You see the 4 and 1 players who have a pretty firm grasp on it, and then you'll play someone fantastic and you'll go, shit, I didn't know you could do that. Like, I'm learning now. So I think there's still going to be shenanigans. I think it's just curtailing some of the most abusive stuff.
Egregious.
Yeah. Charging over terrain. Unless otherwise stated, it can be moved over terrain feature when it makes a charge move, but not through it. So this is the same as the movement. You ignore any 2-inch or shorter terrain. Otherwise, you lose movement moving over it. Job's a good one. Charging with fly. When a model with fly starts or ends a charge move on a terrain feature, instead of measuring the path it has moved, you instead measure through the air, so diagonal again. In addition, it can be moved over other models as if they were not there. A model that can fly cannot end its move on top of another model. So basically, now you can charge vertically, which charging...
And over your opponent's units.
Yes, you could do that currently. You can move over units, but you couldn't move over terrain.
I thought you can't move. Oh, sorry, you're right. Yeah, sorry, I'm getting.
It's because it's different to how it was in 8th. It trips a lot of people up. But don't worry about it. The rules are changing, and now they're clear again. So that's great. Does that mean? Am I missing any little interactions there?
I don't think so. This feels like the charger phase feels like something where
it's been massively
instances
simplified.
will get dug out.
Yeah, that's true.
And a bit of practice, a bit of implementation.
Yeah, I'm definitely not seeing a way to abuse this, but when we put models on the table, I'm really looking forward to finding ways
You
to
bet
abuse
there
it.
is.
100%. Fight phase. So, fight phase. Pile in, make attacks, consolidate. Easy stuff. People who like melee don't have to be able to think good. So that's a winner. Definitely not making stereotypes as someone who likes to play shooting armies and looks down on those filthy peasants who bring big sticks and no high-tech weaponry. When a unit piles in, you move each model in that unit that is not already in base-to-base contact, so you still can't move if you're based, with an enemy model up to 3 inches. This is a pile-in move. For a pile-in to be possible, a unit must be able to end these moves within engagement range of one or more enemy units and in unit coherency. If these conditions cannot be met, no models in the unit can make pile-in moves this phase, and you progress to making melee attacks with this unit. Otherwise, the unit can make pile-in moves. So, if you can't pile in towards a unit, you don't get to pile in. And you have to be within 3 inches. You can't pile into the closest enemy unit to get extra movement if they're not going to, you can't do shenanigans like that. You can still do shenanigans as long as you're ending in combat. And I believe you have to be...
So it makes it tricky for like massive horde units, right? Because say you've got like a horde unit that's maybe 3-4 rows deep.
Yeah.
The front line will be able to pile in. The
Yeah.
second line might be able to. By the time they've got away, they're going to pull the other guys out of coherency because they can't go that far, right? They can't move at all.
It's the unit, so I believe you can't make the unit coherency. So the rest of the models can pile in closer. You just can't make a pile in unit move if you can't move your like any models closer.
Right. Okay. Clear. Okay.
So basically, you can't pile in if you're not in engagement range, and you won't get into engagement range. Is how I'm reading it.
Clear.
Also, you have to move close to the closest enemy model, as it currently stands. However, if you can end the move in base-to-base contact with one or more enemy models while still satisfying all of the conditions above, it must do so. That means there is 100% going to be some jank. And I don't know how you're pulling it off yet, but you're going to set up your charges so models are like 3.1 inches away from the model that you want them to end up near. So you can pile in, not get based, move as close as possible, or do some shenanigans so that all of the requirements above are not met, so you don't have to base the models. There's going to be something in there, and we'll see if that gets caught and fixed. But making melee attacks. Select the weapon. Great.
Looks like our leaker selected his weapon.
Yes, he did.
Sorry, I can't help but make these jokes.
Hey,
It's literally
jokes
over
funny.
make melee attacks. Come on.
Yeah. So you pick a weapon. You get to pick with one. Well, it says which models fight. We should say. I should read that out. Basically, it's if you're within engagement range, in base to base with their models, or in base to base with one of your models that's in base to base with one of their models. So basically, the old 0.5 inch of 0.5 inch fighting through, it's now base to base. So you can chain attacks through, but it's only 2 rows, and it's only if you are literally touching the models in all points. We don't see what engagement range is codified as. I think it's going to be a 1/2 inch. But we haven't actually seen it yet. So we'll just assume that it's still like a 1/2 inch or an inch. But it might just be that engagement range is base to base. I don't think that's the case, but we'll see.
Definitely
Select
a
weapon.
topic of discussion at the moment, right?
It definitely is, yeah. Select a weapon. Use one of the weapons on its data sheet. If it has more than one, you can only use one, unless it has extra attacks. Nice and easy. And then more guff there. Yeah, literally just make one. I'm not reading every word here. I will never get to eat. I haven't had dinner yet because
I was going to say, man, like I think this is all the same, right? This bit.
Yeah, so we'll whiz through. Select targets. You've got to select an enemy unit that is in engagement range base to base or base to base to base to base. If the melee weapon is making more than an attack, you can still split attacks per weapon. So as it is currently, if you've got a captain with 6 attacks and he has a sword, he can make 3 attacks into one guy, 3 attacks into another. That's fine. It's just ranged weapons that are capped at all my assault cannon attacks have to go into a single model. If there are no eligible targets, that unit cannot make melee attacks this phase, but can still consolidate, same as it is currently. Make attacks follows the same attack sequence, which is the same. And again, you've got to make all of your profiled attacks into the same target, and then you've got to make all of your attacks with the same weapon. So if you're splitting attacks, do it all into one squad, then to the next squad, and within that, all of the same profile, then the next profile, then the next profile. No getting funny with your damage. Job's a good one. All attacks are resolved, even if no models in that unit remain. That's important. That is a rule that people miss at the moment. If you're shooting weapons that with Gets Hot or Hazardous in 10th edition, you still have to make those attacks, and you still have to roll to see if you kill yourself.
Ooh.
I don't think we've seen any hazardous attacks yet in melee.
Melee, no.
Why not? Why not? Consolidate.
Sword. Make it happen, GW.
Absolutely. Gets Hot. After a unit is finished making all its melee attacks, it consolidates. You can move each model in that unit that is not already in base-to-base contact up to 3 inches. A unit must be able to end these moves within engagement range of one or more enemy units and in unit coherency. If these conditions cannot be met, then each model in that unit can instead make a consolidation move towards the closest objective marker, but only if after doing so the unit is within range of the objective marker and in
Oh
unit
my God.
coherency.
Man, that is a lot of qualifiers.
Basically, you have to move as close as possible to the. Well, no, you don't have to move as close as possible. If you can base to base a unit, you have to consolidate towards them if you decide to
Mhm.
consolidate. If you can't base to base, you have to move closer, but you don't have to move
Onto.
directly closer. So there's some room for shenanigans there.
And
If you
onto.
can't do either of those, you
Oh, sorry.
can consolidate closer to an objective, but only if you're going to end in range of the objective. It's wordy, but they're trying to cut down on the bullshit. At
So it's
this point,
interesting. So and that's a can, so it's not a have to.
yeah, so you can stay still.
Yeah, because that's important for things like, I mean, at the moment, you would Codex Warfare. No, it's the other one. Shock tactics, where you don't might not want to stand in an objective.
You don't want to be unwillingly pulled onto objectives so your opponent can kill you off the objective. That's correct. Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. So this little graphic here they have is why I believe that engagement range is still an inch or a half inch, because it says here on part B, 5 of the termagants are within engagement range. As you can see, only 3 of them are base to base. You've got one here and you've got one here that are not. They are within about half an inch. And then the red models are fighting through, and the verbiage is that they are in base to base of a model that is in base to base. It doesn't say base to base of a unit within engagement range. So I think that we're still looking at a half-inch engagement range, so you're not looking at like a 10-inch charge out of deep strike. You're still looking at a 9-inch, but we will
Nice.
see when the last few bits of the rules get leaked, and then they're piling in, and yeah, it's just explaining more of the same. We have got here the anatomy of a data sheet. I think we've seen enough data sheets to understand them. If you
Yes.
haven't, pause the video now. I've got part 1 and part 2. I'll leave that there for a second. I'm not going to go through it. This is, the sort of stuff that we're expecting to see. The war gear options are the only interesting bit. I don't know whether we'll be seeing points on here. It doesn't look like it. I think points might be agnostic of the data sheets, and we'll just see them separately. I am expecting to see weapon options be free as much as possible. That's something they were trying to do in 9th edition.
Yeah.
Space Marines, you might still be paying for your options. I'm sorry. You've got too many options to make them free and make balancing easy. It's like, why do Tyranid Warriors, why were all of their options the same price on release? Some of them were just better than others. Yeah, so this is more just anatomy of. Quickly down the side. Oh, sorry, you were going to go. Or were you just breathing?
Oh no, no, no. I was just breathing.
That's all right then.
The next interesting bit I think I found is deployment abilities, but which is the page below that one.
Just quickly, leadership tests, which is 2d6, beat or equal the leadership.
Yeah.
That's fine. Random characteristics, move d6. It tells you how to roll dice. Aura abilities. Some affect multiple models or units in a given range. These are known as aura abilities, and are tagged with the word aura, the way that they were meant to be in 9th edition, but it wasn't consistent. A model with an aura ability is always in range of its own aura. Nice to have spelled out there. A unit can be affected by more than one aura ability at a time, but if a unit is within range of the same aura more than once, it only applies once. Cool. So we're just getting confirmation that you can't use the same ability multiple times, obviously. Psychic weapons and abilities. Some weapons and abilities can only be used by psykers. Such weapons have the psychic tag. If they cause any units to suffer one or more wounds, each of those wounds are considered to be inflicted by a psychic attack. I don't think that's in any way a positive from the things that we've seen so far. I think that's just going to be if you have, for example, a librarian in a Terminator squad who gives a 4-up feel no pain against psychic attacks. That's what we're going to see here. So Grey Knights are going to really struggle into that 4-up feel no pain against psychic attacks. Deployment abilities. As you said, the next interesting bit. Deep Strike. During declare battle formation step, if every model in this unit has this ability, so again, no attaching a normal captain to a Terminator squad and deep striking, you can set it up in reserves instead of on the battlefield. In the reinforcement step of one of your movement phases, you can set this up anywhere on the battlefield more than 9 inches horizontally away from enemy models. So no getting shirty with, flying models. being, diagonally away, but less than and ignoring vertical movement, the way that there was at one point in 9th edition. Same as it is, just cutting out any room for funny business.
Scouts looks interesting. Very Magic the Gathering.
Yeah.
Yeah, so what they
Yeah,
do is they tend to have
because
like,
it's 10 paragraphs.
yeah, well, there's that as well, yeah. But it's like an ability and X, so it's so they can, up and down the power level of something, or make things a little bit more unique, but while making the rule very simple.
Yeah, we're seeing that a lot with the way they're wording rules, like precision hits, not precision
Melter
hits.
X.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good example.
I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, so basically, at the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, so after you know who's going first or second, you can make a normal move up to X as if it was your movement phase, as can any dedicated transport model that such a unit starts the battle embarked within, provided only models that are embarked have the scout keyword. So you can still use your dominions to pre-game move the immolator that you're in. However, you can't use that to get your Repentia closer to your opponent's models. It must end more than 9 inches away from enemy models horizontally. Basically, the same as scout moves, but it's just tied up, and removing any potential abuse cases where you use a single scout character to ferry a unit of melee models forwards in a transport. Infiltrators. If every model in the unit has this ability, it can be set up on the battlefield more than 9 inches away from the deployment and enemy models. Same as it is, but you can just put a single keyword instead of having to write out a mini paragraph for each unit. Leader. Some characters have leader on their datasheet. They are known as leaders, and the units they can lead are listed on their datasheet. We've seen this already. You can only put leaders in certain squads. That is, again, another reason that I'm feeling quite positive about 10th, because it's limiting any abuse case. All they have to do is go, which squads is this going to be okay with? Will a 4-up Feel No Pain, for example, break the game by putting it on this squad? Yes, cool. Don't put it on the list of squads they can join.
It's like Manichima reaches for a data sheet and someone slaps his hand away. He goes, oh, God damn it.
He'll find something. Don't
He'll
you
find
worry
it.
about that.
That guy will find it.
He will indeed. So, during the declare battle formation step, for each leader in your army, you can select one of those bodyguard units. The leader will then attach the bodyguard unit. So you don't do it on your data sheet. You do it after you've seen your opponent's army, but when you're declaring transports and the like, I believe that is.
Like it.
When the bodyguard unit contains a leader, it's known as an attached unit, and the exception of rules that are triggered when units are destroyed is treated as... Yeah, cool. So just back to what we saw earlier, if you destroy the leader, the squad just goes back to being normal, and vice versa. Each time an attack targets an attached unit, until the attacking unit has resolved all of its attacks, you must use the toughness characteristic of the bodyguard models in that unit, even if the leader has a different toughness characteristic. Good for support characters, bad for hive tyrants in Tyrant Guard. The attacks can't be allocated to a character model in the unit, even if it's lost one or more models, one or more wounds. Sorry, so that's good if you've got an attached unit, and you take a wound from precision fires. Your opponent then can't just turn 3 demolishing cannons on the squad and go, "Cool, take some saves on your El Capitan," which is definitely the abusive case that was coming. As soon as the last bodyguard has been destroyed, any attacks made against that unit that have yet to be allocated can then be allocated to the character models. That seems fine. I'm sure there's going to be a couple of feel bad moments. Very much the Tyrant Guard and the Hive Tyrant example. We know that the Hive Tyrant has got a higher toughness, but if he's joined Tyrant Guard who are maybe toughness 6 or 7, and they fail loads of, the opponent wounds loads of times, that could suck. But yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think most of the time we're going to see that not matter at all. Stratagems. I think we're coming to the end here, but this might be the big one.
Let's rattle through a few of these.
We will do. We'll rattle through all of them. Just to there's only I think 9 in total, something like that.
Oh, okay, fine. Let's do it.
So stratagems, we're working with the assumption that you start with 0 CP and you get 1 per player turn each. So you'll be getting 2 a battle round, 10 over the course of the game. And then it tells you all the different types. They didn't matter in 9th, apart from some very niche rules. They're probably not going to matter in 10th. So fuck them. Command reroll. In any phase after you've made a hit, wound, damage, save, advance, charge, desperate, escape, hazardous, or after you've rolled the number of attacks made with a weapon on a d6 or multiple d6. For an attack model unit from your army, you can reroll. Cost 1 CP. Does what it says on the tin. They've expanded it to include hazardous and desperate escape from what you can do at the moment. Nice and easy. Counter-offensive. This is interrupt. One unit after your army that is within engagement range of one or more enemy units and has not already selected to fight this phase fights next after an enemy unit has just fought. Exactly the same as it is. 2 CP on that one. Epic challenge. Here's the interesting one. Fight phase. When you have a character unit that is in range of an enemy unit with an attached, so you've got your Terminators and your Terminator Librarian. The character gets the buff. So even if the character's in an attached squad, his squad don't get it. It's only he's challenging the opposing character. And until the end of the phase, all melee attacks made by that model have the precision ability. That means you are going to be absolutely chipping away at support characters. If you've got a melee character in your squad, you're going to spend a CP and you're going to kill their support character, which is going to be important because, as we're seeing, only one character can join a unit unless there are exceptions such as lieutenants, which they have been shown to have. So you're going to be able to pick out that support character a lot of the time, I think. Any thoughts on that one? It was.
I think I'm interested in it because I'm unsure how often you're going to be attaching your character, right? Because you can only be
it
targeted
feels like
within 12
most
inches.
of the time you're going to be attaching them. I don't think there's going to be a lot of lone operatives.
But I think I'm unsure. Obviously, there's so many characters in the game, right? There'll be some that really benefit from being attached. There'll be some that literally you never do. And I wonder where the sliding scale kind of ends up in terms of what's more common. I don't want, I'm not going to say like I know, but I just think it's going to be interesting to see how relevant this is.
It depends what buffs we get. Like
Yeah,
I think
exactly.
it's going to vary by army as well. Like Necrons,
100%.
their detachment ability that they're going to get for indexes is +1 to hit if you have a character attached. So they're going to have
Very
characters
nice.
in as many squads as possible. And as Gelmar says, I imagine most characters buff their units. I think that is what we've seen so far. But then you've got people like Gilliman who have aura abilities of badassery. And he is, Chris says this could really suck when you're the Hive Tyrant. It could do, but it's their time to get shafted, so I'm not going to be too too
Stop
sad.
it.
Mate, I abused Flyrants, for a good 6-8 months. But, if it's their time of the bin, it's their time of the bin. I do have 4. Insane Bravery. This one is interesting because Battle Shock is going to be so impactful. As a reminder, if you fail Battle Shock, you can't have stratagems used on you, and you can't control objectives. So it can be absolutely devastating, especially if you, for example, are playing against a Tyranid player and they Battle Shock you across the board, and suddenly you go from holding 3 objectives and scoring 15 to holding 1 and only scoring 5. That could be absolutely massive. This stratagem is 1 CP, and basically you turn off Battle Shock. You become unbattle shocked, as if you pass the dice roll. So it's like the current stratagem, only before you had to call your shot, you didn't take the test. You just automatically passed. That was capped as a once per game, and it was 2 CP. Now it's after you fail, and it's 1 CP. I know we're seeing a lot less CP in the game. I think this is going to be used a lot.
Yeah.
Galmar says crucially only works in the Battle Shock phase. That is true. So if we see rules that make you take Battle Shock tests in other phases, that could you won't be able to use this stratagem.
Well, you'd be battle shocked in your turn in that phase, and then when you got to your next command phase, you just use this, right?
Yes, but it's important because you could, for example, if you don't care about the amount of objectives your opponent's holding as a Tyranid player, you don't use this stratagem in their command phase, but you use it in their movement phase, and they remain battle shocked, and they can't use offensive or defensive strats because they're
Right.
battle
Yes. Yeah.
shocked.
For the most
That
part, I
could
was
be
thinking of
actually really,
them
yeah,
scoring.
yeah. So it's a really good point that Gelmaris brings up. If you shadow the warp at the start of the command phase, it wouldn't help. No, but you can. I don't think you do it at the start of the phase. I think you do it at any point in the phase, if I remember correctly. So you can make your opponent take their normal battle shock tests, then go cool, do it
Cool.
again with
Go
minuses.
again.
Yeah, and again,
One more
another
time.
one. So yeah, interesting to see how that one plays out. It looks like a really potentially strong rule that you have to actually think about. Grenade!
Grenade.
1 CP.
Take cover.
In the
Oh.
shooting phase, no, not take cover, because grenades will pull you out of cover. It's the opposite. Um, you select one unit of yours with the grenade keyword. Grenades have gone from being just a shit weapon that you roll
Yeah.
one of before you roll all the pistols in your witch unit, to just a keyword that gives you a strat. Roll 6d6 against a unit within 8 inches on a 4+2 some mortal wounds. 1 CP, 3 mortal wounds. We're back to the efficiency of mortal wound strats that we saw in 8th edition. If you were spending 1 CP to do 3 mortal wounds, you felt good about it. At that point, you had a lot more CP, so maybe this doesn't make the cut. But I think it's a nice tool to keep in your back pocket.
I think it's a nice way to maybe finish off a character or something.
That's interesting. Yeah. If you're, charging with intercessors, sorry, and the character's got 3 wounds left, and you're like, I'm not going to do much. Yeah, that's a very fair point. Tank shock. Speaking of good value for CP, this is, I think, potentially nuts, because it says you use it in your charge phase, and you select one vehicle unit from your army. This is vehicles. It's not monsters. They don't want Carnifexes doing it. They don't want, any monster doing it, but you can do it with knights, which is going to be interesting. And that's
Unless knights have a
important.
different keyword. TBC.
Yeah, sure, but I think they're going to be vehicles, because
They
otherwise
should be, right?
anti-vehicle as a keyword wouldn't work against them. It
True
doesn't
that.
exclude walkers, which is what I think is interesting. So, until the end of the phase, after your unit ends a charge move, select one enemy unit within engagement range of it, then select one melee weapon your unit is equipped with. So it's not the model strength, because that's gone. It's the weapon strength. Roll a number of d6 equal to that weapon strength characteristic. If that strength characteristic is greater than the enemy unit's toughness, roll 2 additional d6. For each 5 plus, that enemy unit suffers 1 mortal wound, to a maximum of 6 mortal wounds. That is potentially a lot of mortal wounds for a CP. If you have, you only need to roll 10 dice to get the. Is that right? No, you have to roll 12 dice to get the cap of 6 mortal wounds on average. So if you have a strength 20 weapon, which is quite high but possible, perhaps the big gauntlet that the knights have will be strength 24 or something, so it's wounding land raiders on 2s. You're going to get pretty consistently your mortal wounds there. So it'll be interesting. I also like the verbiage there. Until the end of the phase after your unit ends a charge move. I know you can only currently make one charge move, but, and they have printed rules like this before, if you can make a charge move, kill something, make another charge move, the way that the Squig Rider, the character for orcs, can do, maybe you'll get to do mortal wounds to multiple units and just like blast through units there. What do you think?
No, I think it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, like it's kind of tough because tagging guard players is like a typical way of beating those tanks, right? So they've tried to make it easier by shooting outside of combat, etc.
Yep.
But after
They've
that, they
made their
don't really
melee
have much
weapons
of a way to
better.
get out of it. Say again?
They've made their melee weapons better. Not
Yeah.
significantly, but I think a Land Raider has 6 attacks, hitting on 4, strength 8, AP 0, 1 damage. So you'll splat some
Exactly.
guardsmen.
So it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's, I think it's interesting. I think it gives vehicles more play, and everyone's been complaining that there's not enough vehicles in ninth. I mean, not so much now. There's a little bit more now, but for this entire edition, it's been, hey, do you have the bridge book keyword? Get yourself in.
Yeah.
Or fly.
It looks like it could well be the time of vehicles. And dreadnoughts, we've seen, have lost their -1 damage. -1 damage seems to have just gone away as a rule, which is good. I hope it doesn't return, or I hope it doesn't need to return. I hope damage is kept within a more reasonable bounds. So
Indeed, but
hopefully we'll see vehicles other than just dreadnoughts and Carnifexes.
Ed, explain rapid ingress to me, because is this saying that you have to spend
Yes,
a
it
CP
is.
to bring your guys in?
No, it's not. So if you deep strike, you can deep strike normally. That's fine.
Yeah.
Don't have to pay CP for it. Do it at the end of your movement phase, all the same as normal. However, you can use this stratagem at the end of your opponent's movement phase.
Oh,
And
that's what I missed.
yeah, you target 1 unit from your reserves. So as we saw previewed with the Terminators. You select your unit of Terminators, you spend 1 CP, and at the end of your opponent's movement phase, after they've done their reserves, you bring in your unit onto the battlefield as if it was the reinforcement step of your movement phase. So, after your opponent has moved to where they want to move, you get to put your models down. If you're playing against an army that is, mostly a melee army, you just go, cool, here I am, I'm 12 inches away from you. But you're not going to be able to charge anyone. I'm going to move 6 or move 5 and have a very reasonable charge. You can't interact with me. If you're playing against a shooting army, you're going to go, cool, I'm going to sit in this little L ruin or whatever's on the table. You can't interact with me in a meaningful way. I think this is going to be disgusting, and
Yeah,
I'm going to hate playing
staging
against
in your
it.
opponent's turn after they've moved is pretty good.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
Can't wait to see the UKTC and me video about this one, Ed.
Yeah, well, Zach was making a joke about selling 100 sets of plywood terrain, so I wonder if he's going to go to Games Workshop terrain. Who knows? We'll see.
Well,
We'll see.
it's a good move for them financially, right? Because then everyone will have to buy their terrain.
Yeah, I assume these rules were written with Games Workshop terrain in mind, more than Ninth
Right.
Edition rules were. So
Power
it'll be
depth
interesting to
system.
see how the game is played, because that is a bit of information we're really missing alongside the missions. Cool. So Fire Overwatch. This one's slightly different as well. So you can use this in your opponent's charge phase, and you can also use it in your opponent's movement phase, just after an enemy unit is set up, or when an enemy unit starts or ends a normal advance, fallback, or charge move. So you can use that to Overwatch as you normally would. Um, if you can also Overwatch with a unit that doesn't get charged by the looks of things. So you select one unit in your army within 24 inches of the enemy unit and would be eligible to shoot. Your units can shoot that enemy unit as if it was the shooting phase. However, you only hit on 6s, regardless of the ballistic skill, and you can only use the strat once per turn. So you can't double Overwatch. You can't Overwatch in their movement phase, and you can't then Overwatch in their charge phase as well, which would be a bit oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
However, this has combined Auspex Scan and Overwatch and just shoot when someone's moved, because fuck you, that's why. You only hit on 6s at all times, so it's worse as like an Auspex Scan, deny deep strike type of jobby, but it is better in terms of just positional play. Interestingly, I think Flamers are going to be very good
I
with
was about to
these.
say, I'm just investing all my money into Flamers.
Yeah, which you have
Sorry,
done
Ed.
already,
Sorry.
so it's going to work out well. Galmara says, "Thank fuck no more one model eating my Overwatch. I can always hit the unit I want to." Yeah, that's interesting. I'm not 100% sure how that interacts with people charging and then you fire at the end of the turn. I'm assuming it works that way. I'll be honest, there's a lot of words in there. I'm just going to assume it works the way that you think it should, and I'll think about the wording later on.
Yeah, it says
Yeah.
when your opponent's movement or charge phase, just after an enemy unit is set up, or when an
Or when
enemy
it
unit starts.
starts or ends.
So when
Oh,
it
okay,
ends,
you could do it when it starts the charge. Oh no, they still could soak the Overwatch, because
yes,
if a model charges in and you don't Overwatch them, the unit that you want to Overwatch with will then be tied up.
exactly.
So the neighboring unit could Overwatch for you, but
That's it.
your opponent can still tie you up. Okay, that's fine. This is interesting. I'm really looking forward to shooting my opponents in their movement phase. Like, really looking forward to that. And I am
And
definitely going to
Flamers
be
are going to
playing
be
around.
so good, eh?
Yeah, I'm going to be. The problem is the stat line on them isn't actually that good, so it depends what people bring. If people are bringing
Well,
lots of vehicles, um,
see that Pyrovore stat. That's what I want to see.
yeah, yeah,
Because I
we'll
mean,
see.
it's ridiculous as it is now. So God knows. Maybe they've had their turn in the sun.
I think if anything, it's going to go 2d6 shots 401 and 1d6 shots 612. That would be in line in sort of the damage um, limiting that we've been seeing so far.
But
Go to ground in your opponent's shooting phase after an enemy owner has selected one of its targets. You use it on one of your infantry squads that was selected as the target of one of the attacks. You get a 6-up invuln and the benefit of cover. Great. Go to
whoa,
ground. 1 CP. This is good because it makes it worthwhile using on units in the open that are tanky, but also on trash guardsmen.
yeah, horde stuff. Yeah, man.
Yeah. So just getting a 6-up invuln is quite nice. Like, it's not game breaking, but it's the sort of thing that you might go, I'm going to spend a CP here. You've got 20 shots that are hitting on threes, wounding on threes. I've only got 10 models, but if one of them survives, I get primary.
Yeah, man, I'm a big fan of this.
Yeah, I think it's just
Cool strat.
a good strat. You might not end up using it all that much, but it's a nice one to have. Smoke screen. When your opponent selects you one smoke unit from your army that is selected, you get the benefit of cover and stealth. So it's the strat as it is at current, but you also get cover. So basically, it'll be a tank with smoke screen, the smoke keyword, and you go, you're -1 to hit me, and I've got +1 to your save. Really good use of a CP, I think, especially with AP being squished this edition.
Mm-hmm.
And then I believe finally we have heroic intervention. This is weird as fuck. You can no longer heroically intervene with characters. That's gone. So the positional play of putting Trajan in the middle of an objective and saying, "Come closer, I dare you," is dead. But now you're going to put an entire unit on a point and say, "Come closer, you're dead." The way it works, after your opponent has made a charge in their charge phase, you can then, with a unit that's within 6 inches of the enemy unit, if they would be eligible to declare a charge, so they haven't advanced in your opponent's turn somehow. I believe that would be how it worked. But say there's nothing stopping them from declaring a charge, they get to declare a charge, including rolling 2d6. So I'm looking forward to spending 2 CP and trying to reach a unit that's within 5 inches and then failing my charge.
Oh, mate,
It's
so
going to be
good, right?
absolutely heartbreaking. Restrictions, you can only select a vehicle unit if it's a walker. Note that for this charge to be successful, your unit does not... if the charge is successful, you don't get any charge bonuses. So you do not get fight first, which is the same as it currently is. But what's interesting is heroic interventions at current is done at the end of the phase. So your opponent goes, "I'm going to tie you up, I'm going to do all my shenanigans." In this case, your opponent makes the first charge, and if they somehow mess up the positioning, or if you have overlapped your units well, you just go, "Cool, now I'm going to charge you." And I think you can... Okay, so you've got to charge that unit and only that unit. So you can't tire up your opponent's units and prevent them from making charges, which is what I was kind of thinking you might be
One
able to
unit,
do.
yeah.
But you can still, like, when previously your opponent would like charge you with something just terrible to stop you from heroicing in or something along those lines. Now you're just going to go, you've made your first charge, the important one that you wanted to save your CP reroll for. Cool. I'm going to heroic intervention now.
Ed, can you not? So could you not place your models in such a way that when you do pile in, say like your opponent's got 2 units next to each other, both of them are going to charge the unit you want to protect. Then you do
pile in
this.
happens in the next phase. That's the thing that's stopping you from...
But couldn't you line your models so they couldn't run through them?
Sorry, I think I've misunderstood what you were asking.
No,
give
I'm
me
just
that one
thinking of
again.
ways to get around this, right? So I've got 2 units that are charging.
Mhm.
On the other side, I've got the character unit and a unit that I'm trying to protect on the objective, for example.
Mhm.
So they fail a charge, and then I
Mhm.
go, haha, heroic intervention. I'm going to go into that unit that just failed the charge,
Mhm.
for example.
You have to make your charge move. You can't heroically intervene if they fail the charge. But I think it still works for example, so go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is one we'll need to play out a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so different to what we've seen. It's very difficult to conceptualize exactly what it does.
I don't know if I like it.
I don't like the idea of failing a heroic intervention after I spend 2 CP, because I
Man,
will
that
not
hurts,
have a
man.
third CP to be able to re-roll that charge like 100%. There's no point in the game I'm going to have 3 CP.
The only time you'd ever do this is if you are behind, and then if you fail that charge, you feel like a complete dick.
I think there's going to be a lot of times you're going to want to do it. I don't think there's going to be a lot of times you're going to want to set on 2 CP.
That's what we are, yeah. But you're only going to do it if you're behind, and like this could change the game, blah blah blah. I don't think
I think it's
if
just a
I'm
good
ahead, I do
protective
this.
play.
Hmm?
I think it's good because you can be ahead and your opponent can still make a charge that's going to decimate a unit, and if
True.
you can like trade up and just like cement the lead, yeah, that'll be fun.
Eh,
What do you think about the strats? Because these are the ones that everyone gets.
I think there's some funky stuff in here. That rapid ingress is bizarre. I love
Oh
it.
man, that's going to be so frustrating to play against.
Overwatch feels like something that could be broken, but it
Hmm.
almost feels like too on the nose to be broken. Like, would they let you do this in the movement phase if there was an easy way to break it? I don't think. I think you're right. I err on positivity on that. I think that they're not going to
I
introduce something
don't.
as
I
bizarre
don't
as this, and
think it's
then
necessarily going to be broken. I think it's going to be frustrating to play against until we get
yeah,
used to it.
I think you're gonna have to
Galmar
hide
says,
behind terrain. I mean, if you go up against flames, you're gonna be like, God, I have to hide behind terrain everywhere.
yeah.
Um, and so can you fire Overwatch if you can't see if
No,
they
it still
charge you
has.
from behind terrain?
It still has to. I don't believe so because it'd be when they end a charge phase, but you wouldn't be an eligible unit to shoot.
Right,
So
clear.
I think you can still hide behind terrain. Galmara says
Okay.
that it shuts down people trying to make Hail Mary plays, I thought, in terms of the heroic intervention. Potentially, I think it'll get to the point where, you know, how we measure out and say, you know, am I free from heroic intervention? I think a lot of that will still happen and people will learn to play around it pretty quickly. It'll be harder to do because it's a 6 inch, but I think people will get pretty adept at still just avoiding the worst heroic
Mm,
interventions. Cool. Strategic reserves. Is this the last bit? Cool. We'll
this is
just
the
whiz
last bit,
through.
Ed.
Um, so they go into you declare in the declare formation battle formations, same as currently. I'm assuming declare battle formations is at the start of the game and it's not in your on your list building. If I'm wrong, this is fucking bizarre, but we'll go like that. It can't be more than a quarter of your army, so 500 points. You can't put fortifications into reserves because people are going to be taking those. That's funny. Units that are placed into strategic reserves are called strategic reserve units, can arrive later in the battle, except during the first battle round. So that's good to know. There's still no deep striking or reserves on turn one. Normally that's in like the tournament pack, but they've just put it in here. And if they're not at the battlefield at the end of the battle, they count as destroyed. Very nice. Setting up. During the second battle round, they can be wholly within 6 inches of any battlefield edge, but no models in those units can be set up within the enemy deployment zone. Same as it is,
Yeah.
same as it is currently. And starting from the third battle round, strat reserve units can come in from any battlefield edge,
Ooh.
including your opponent. So it's literally anywhere on the board outside of 9 inches horizontally. So this is exactly the same as it is currently, with the exception of you cannot set up on your own board edge the way that you can normally within an inch of it, but within 9 inches of your opponent. So there's no coming in like into engagement range of your enemy, which is something you can do currently if they're in your deployment zone.
Mm.
Um, or
And
in
you come
your
on,
on your
you
board
can
edge.
come into your opponent's board edge as well, right?
You can on turn 3, yeah. You can just
Turn
come in
three.
from any. So that'll be
Again,
interesting.
good rules, right? It's just taking out the complexity. Like, how many times you went, which one's my board edge again? Do you know what I mean? Are we
Literally
on
last
corner
night, Tom
deployment? I'm
asked me
trying to
that,
figure out if it's a long one or a
and
short
you
one.
just look at it, you go, it's all right on the ones where only one board edge is fully in your deployment. But when you've got like halves, that's when it gets a bit fucky.
Mm.
Cool. There
Uh,
was a second set of pictures. I think they're all in this folder, and I'm too tired and hungry to
yeah,
check.
that was 2 hours that Ed. So hardcore,
Yeah.
man. Well done for speaking all the way through that.
Oh, mate, you can't shut me up. Just very quickly, Galmara says, can you hold reserves beyond T3 now? Yes, according to these rules, but I believe that we will see that limited in the tournament packs. That is my expectation. But good
Mm.
spot there. So, thank you very much for listening to us ramble. As you can see, I am losing the plot entirely. When more stuff comes out, we will probably do more speculative videos like this. It's great to see some rules. I'm liking the direction 10th edition seems to go in. There's very
Mhm.
little in there that seems like it needs clarifying. There is still tactical depth to the game. They have removed some of the edge cases that I'm, in favor of. Thanks for watching.
Yeah, thanks for watching, everyone. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Peace out.